to get this later, just right. They're ringing on the telephone, way off, they're ringing in the head now. No such thing as tomorrow, all we want, 2, 3, go time! It's time tick, tick, ticking in my head. Burn! The time tick, tick, ticking in my head. Burn! The time tick, tick, ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. If I tell you what I'm doing today, will you shut and get out of my way? Someone doesn't what the time is, I don't know. They know I gotta go now. No time to get my watch or pet. No time, never got a thing to wear. They're ringing on the telephone, way over, they're ringing on my head now. No such thing as tomorrow. All we want, 2, 3, go time! For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. No such thing as tomorrow. All we want, 2, 3, go time! For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. For the time tick, tick, ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing, Twitter? This is the first time on Twitter. And hello, Facebook, and hello, YouTube. Welcome to the LeBrain train. On Friday, December the 10th, we are going to be talking about these guys tonight, the Transformers, because they're more than meets the eye. And I am anxiously awaiting the arrival of my coffee, this evening's coffee, and there's even some pizza coming at some point, but you know, I'll save you the agony of watching me eat pizza. I'm just going to have to let it get cold. But before we get started tonight, I have an unboxing. Well, an unpackaging, really. This one comes from my good buddy Aaron in Owen Sound. You've seen him on this show many times. And to do this, I would like to bring on my co-host tonight, Mr. Harrison from Australia. Are you good to go, Harrison? He's good to go. Let's bring him on. Hey, hey!
Greetings, fellow sentient.
I see Cyclonus and Scourge behind you.
Yeah, there'll be more once it splits up.
I hope so. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of stuff down here for show and tell today. I've
got stuff to the left, stuff to the right.
All of my stuff is to the right and the far right. But we'll get there. Let's do this. I wanted you to see this. I don't know if you have this. I didn't. Mr. Aaron, who I've got a good story about him, has purchased for me Alice Cooper Theater of Death, live 2009. And he always puts, he's always the same sticky note. This kind of sunset, or maybe that's a sunrise. He's always got the same sticky note, and he always puts his own personalized message on there. Do you have this one, Harrison?
No, I do not.
Would 2009, would that make, is this pre-Orianthe? I
believe so. I know 2005 she wasn't around.
Would this be Along Came a Spider tour?
Would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the tracks here, and
yeah. Orianthe was there for the Welcome to My Nightmare, which was 2013.
Right. I don't see any tracks here from the Spider album. So I don't know. I guess I'll just have to do some research on this later. But thank you, Aaron, so much. He is so generous.
Aaron likes his Alice Cooper Christmas presents.
I'm going to tell you something he did now. I'm going to tell you a story. So he sent me a photo yesterday. He was at his local Sunrise Records, and they had in stock the Whitesnake Restless Heart box set, which is a brand new release, and the Marillion Fugazi box set, which I don't have, and I believe Steph Hond doesn't even have it. And he said, "Hey, do you want either of these?" And I said, "Honestly, dude, I can't. Like, I cannot afford it right now." I said, if you bought me that, I wouldn't be able to pay you back until January." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, my wallet is very sure."
Judas
then
Priest
he sends me
something to say about that.
What's that?
Judas Priest had something to say about that.
Perhaps, yeah. But anyway, the guy text messages like, "Oops, I bought it. Oops, I guess you're just going to have to pay me later." And I'm just like, "You son of a bitch."
That's Aaron, all right.
That's the kind of guy Aaron is. So I've got a Marillion Fugazi box set coming, which is inching me ever so closer back to a complete Marillion collection, just in time for their new album next year. And they just did a reissue of their Christmas compilation CD, a collection
There goes the hits.
What's that?
There goes the hits.
Right. Anyway, there's a new reissue of it with bonus tracks. So fuck. I'm not going to ever have a complete collection. It's never going to happen. So let's talk real quick about what we've got planned tonight. This is something you and I have been discussing for over a year.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, over a year. Same with redoing ballads. I was watching back through some older ones, and I remember me sometime in like November or this time last year saying, "Oh yeah, this one's going to appear on my ballads remastered list."
Uncle Meat thinks that doing the ballads again will be boring, but my point is that the original ballad show, we had some great lists, but it's unwatchable. It was done on Facebook Live over my phone, and for whatever reason that day, my phone wasn't hooked up to the Wi-Fi, so it was working on data, and it was just it was garbage. It was a garbage stream. It's unwatchable. So what's the harm in redoing that? Like, I won't have the same list as last year.
Yeah, I have a good gimmick for this time as well.
You have a gimmick. There you go.
Yeah.
I was going to go with a gimmick last year. I was going to do all Kiss ballads, but Meat fucking vetoed that.
Beth acoustic, Beth remix, Beth extended mix.
Let me just count for you how many versions of Beth are on the new box set. Let's just
7, I believe.
I'm going to confirm for you in a second.
I think when you unboxed the box set, you counted.
Apparently only 5 is all I'm seeing when I do a text search in that folder. I guess they didn't play it live on the live disc. I might have kind of made that assumption that they did.
Now go up a folder to all the Kiss albums and search Beth.
I have it in 2 separate folders, so one moment. So it'll be 5 plus whatever number I tell you right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
If Meat wasn't scared off already, he's going to be now.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 tracks of Beth. I'm not sure how many of those are unique versions, though. Most of them would be at least different masterings at the very least. It's a lot of Beth. That is a lot of Beth. Too much Beth. But this idea that how did we get onto that? How did we get onto Beth? We were talking about ballads, right?
Yeah, me.
We were talking about ballads, but really, this idea, we've been talking about this for well over a year.
I remember I pushed it back because I was like, Kingdom Galvatron's coming out in 2021. I want to wait till for that show. Well,
your wishes come true. And do you have Kingdom Galvatron? I believe.
Yeah, just out of frame next to Scourge.
I don't have any of my Galvatrons here at the house, but I do have an original G1 in absolute mint condition. Packaging is mint. And I have also the Titans Return Galvatron, which was a triple changer that also had a spaceship mode, which I rather liked.
Yeah.
I rather liked it.
Yeah, if only the G1 actually looked anything like what he looked like.
Right. So the G1, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this is all stuff that's been on my mind that may not come up later this evening. So the G1 was also a triple changer. It was Galvatron robot mode, Galvatron cannon mode, which you see in the film. And then there was also a flip down handle that allowed you to hold them as a handgun, continuing the Decepticon handgun tradition, which they maintained for the first 4 years of the line. There was always a Decepticon handgun for the first 4 years of the line.
Shockwave, Megatron, Galvatron, and a 6-shot.
You fucking got it. I didn't think you were going to get it. Oh my God.
I remember you brought up 6-shot once in all our discussions over the past years.
Okay, well, your memory's excellent, obviously, but this is going to be fun, considering that you remembered that. In terms of show and tell, I have, actually, this is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, there's 2 G1 Shockwaves used as props in Aliens.
That's true. I bet you Rob knows that, though. These are gifts from Rob. These are original Transformers catalogs. So there's some show and tell. He gave those to me the last time I saw him, probably. I've got a stack of comic books here, including issue 1 of Generation 2. I have a number of original toys here, like my collection of G1 and G2 mini bots. So we've got lots of show and tell. Why don't we get untangled? And then why don't we run the theme song and bring on Rob?
All right, let's roll out.
Let's do it. As I timed that very poorly. Okay, let's do it.
Ticket to anywhere and a glazed donut to go. The Brain Train. The Brain Train. All aboard.
Hey, how are you, Rob?
I'm
Rob.
fine, but I have to take off just briefly. The morons from
Outer space.
no. The morons from the delivery place
Oh, the
left my food down in the front lobby due to, as they put it, parking issues. So
Okay.
I'll be right back. But I do.
I'm going to get started, okay?
All right, no problem. I have Ravage here. He is standing by.
All right.
So I'm going to ask him to eject.
Eject Ravage. Ravage, eject.
Operation snooze time. I'll be right back.
You're not missing much. This is all stuff you know.
Okay, cool.
All right. So Harrison thought it would be a good idea if we started off the show before we go into lists by just going over the history of the brand.
So they know who to blame when they fall asleep.
Right, exactly. Oh, thanks, sweetie. My coffee.
Hi.
My coffee. Right. So I was just calling up my Word file here. There we go. I forgot to open my Word file. I have everything else open. When we talk about the brand of the Transformers, we are speaking of multiple toy lines that converged in the year 1984, a magical year for us kids in North America. Harrison wasn't even a thought at that point. But I was, still a kid. I was 11 years old, and I first became aware of Transformers, like most of us, through these vibrant TV ads. And they were advertising a toy line, and they were advertising a Marvel comic, of which I have issue number 1 down here somewhere in my multitude of issues, which I should have organized. There's the movie number 1. I really should have organized myself better, shouldn't I? There it is. This was my first introduction to the brand. And Harrison, I believe you've made fun of that cover art before.
I think I've just expressed disdain for comics as a medium in relation to Transformers, just generally, because there's no motion involved. And Transformers, I think, need motion in order to be at their best. But yeah.
Well, I will tell you something. As part of our little history lesson tonight, I've got some vintage Japanese toy ads to present. And if you want to talk about motion, this is some of the best animation that I frankly have ever seen. Really, really smooth toy transforming animation, which I know that's what you're talking about. You're going to love some of these ads. So when I said earlier that Transformers is a combination of multiple toy lines, there were 2 big ones. One of them was called Microman, and the other one was called Diaclone. And Microman, for kids old enough to remember, like me, came to North America as Micronauts, which were these little, I believe they're about 3 3/4 inch figures, about the same size as the Star Wars figures, with all kinds of interchangeable, exchangeable parts and vehicles that you could combine the weapons and modules in different forms. Really inventive, and it really captured us kids. And the idea of Micronauts was they were supposed to be life size. This is how big the character is, right? So he's somebody that can walk around on your desk. And this expanded to a secondary line called Micro Change. Micro Change is the origin of Megatron, Soundwave, the cassettes. And I have some...
I was just going to say, that's the funny thing about Soundwave, is everyone looks at his alt mode and they're like, cassette deck. But because he's from Micro Change, he's actually a micro cassette player.
Correct.
And he's life-sized in his alt mode, the original G1 toy.
Correct. And the Japanese version of Soundwave, which was in the Micro Change line, came with a working radio and headphones, all in the same package. And I'm going to run a series of Microman ads here. It's about 1.5 minutes in total. But what you'll see here is I've selected some clips that sort of show the evolution from the Micronauts, the little action figures, the Micronauts, that gradually transitioning into transforming robots. And by the last ad, you will see a lot of characters that you recognize from the very first year Transformers. So let's take a look at this. Origins of the Transformers Micro Change.
ミクロマン強化スーツを着て悪ロイヤーを倒せ。宇宙からやってきた小さな巨人ミクロマン。5体のミクロロボットはミクロマンの武器となり、さらに合体して最強ロボとなる。5体合体ロボミクロロボット5ミクロマン。ミクロロボット7、721フォーメーション。驚きの新合体システム、721フォーメーション。ミクロロボット7登場。ミクロマン。美 クロチェンジシリーズカメラロボ登場。君の机の上はミラクルワールドミクロチェンジシリーズウォッチロボ登場。
Just a quick note here. I just received a message that Chris Sarr can't comment. So I killed the Twitter stream, the experimental Twitter stream. I've killed it. And I put the LeBrain Facebook back on. Hope that helps, Chris. You ruined the Twitter experiment. Hey, Rob.
Hey,
I love how this kid just has a gun in his drawer. He's just got a watch, a camera, and just a gun in his drawer.
Isn't that funny? And like you said, that's a micro. Did you notice that Ravage was in that ad, but Soundwave wasn't out yet? It appears from that ad because Ravage came out of a normal micro cassette player.
Some of those aesthetics as well are very transformative, like the tunnel and the grid as well.
Very much so, yeah. So needless to say, the Microman line, which as we know came originally as Micronauts in North America, was the origin of those characters. Basically anything that was a life-size object, like Soundwave, the gun, the cassettes, and is there anyone else I'm trying to think came from that line? I'm sure we'll think of some more.
Possibly toys that didn't appear in the show.
Lots of them, like
because there's a lot of them.
That watch. I had that watch.
I had that watch too.
I for mine it was a generic. It wasn't a Transformers.
Mine was a generic too, but I put a Transformer symbol on it.
Ooh, nice.
Much later I forgot to get this for my bit of the history notes, but I remembered much later in like the mid to late 2000s, Hasbro actually did a similar line where they had like cell phones, like video cameras, camera transformers as well.
I quite liked that line. They had the toaster from the but yeah, that was great. I liked that because that was an aspect of Transformers that I had been personally missing during the interim period.
I had the video camera at one point, but unfortunately I don't have any of them.
Was that like the video camera that turned into Laserbeak?
No, it was like a camcorder, and you'd like flick it out. It was just a regular old dude.
Gotcha. So, at the same time that micro change was happening, there was another toy line called Diaclone, and Diaclone was more based on collectible die-cast cars. The kind of thing that, I often saw in like an older brothers collection. Like John Shipper had a whole bunch of these die-cast cars, and a lot of them had interesting features like opening doors and whatnot. And Diaclone was the origins of micro change. I just remembered now. These came from micro change. They're not meant to represent actual cars. No. This is not meant to represent an actual Jeep. This is G1 Brawn. This is meant to represent a toy car. That's why it looks like a toy car instead of a realistic Jeep. That's why I'm trying to find my Bumblebee here, but that's why.
Also, I imagine licensing issues is part of the reason he doesn't look like a real Jeep.
This guy here, does he look like a real pickup truck? No, but he looks like a kid's toy pickup truck. So these are from the micro change line. And the idea is just like in the ad. When the kid goes to sleep, these little guys come to life and walk around his dresser at night, And note how easy that was to transform compared to a modern transformer. Yeah, I told you I was going to have a lot to talk about tonight, and I told you it was going to be kind of scattershot. But those are the micro change line. Now, the Diaclone line, like I said, is the origin of the Autobot cars. But the deluxe, maybe you would want to use the word cars, like Prowl, like Sideswipe, the licensed Lamborghini, the licensed Porsche, those kind of things. Opening doors on a lot of them again. Now, the interesting thing about this line is that they all had little pilot seats because the original Japanese toys came with these little 1-inch figures with magnetic feet so they could stick inside the figure. So that's why we have remnants of that with the Autobot cars. There were always seats that you could never seem to find a use for.
Ironhide doesn't even have a head. Same with Ratchet.
Ironhide is
They've just
basically
painted
it's a
face on
rideable
his
mech.
feet.
Yeah, it's a rideable mech. The toy, not the original animation model. Rob, do you remember growing up the Battlestar Galactica toys?
Yep. And funny that you mentioned that. Hang on just a second. I was just going through a box. I mean, stuff like this.
That's exactly what I mean. The pilots of those ships were virtually the right size to use in an Autobot. And I think one of the neighbor kids used his Battlestar Galactica figures to sit inside Autobots and Decepticons. And you see how that's modular too? Very similar to the Micro Change line. Very similar. That's a fantastic toy. That's a combination of two toys.
I wish I could find a place that sells good stickers to go on the side, because I was a fool when I was young and I removed a lot of the lot of the labels off the stuff.
So that's yours. You didn't buy that secondhand or anything.
No. This was mine.
Gotcha.
I do have though. It's kind of covered, but I'll do what I can to get it out here. I actually have a Cylon Raider.
I had one.
And now, recently,
Here, look at that.
Recently, there is a company out there that has made a 3 3/4 inch scale Viper and Cylon Raider.
Oh, wow.
So these, so I've been kind of looking at them, oh, hey,
there you go.
little figure inside.
So that figure is, from what I remember, one of the neighbor kids made that figure work with a Decepticon jet, of which I have an example here. Not this exact jet, but the basic body mode comes from the Diaclone line. The wings are a Transformers innovation from when these were imported into the US during the second year, but this is a repro of G1 Dirge, and this comes from the Diaclone line. It's got a little opening cockpit there, where a figure right around the size of that Galactica figure would fit nicely.
Yeah,
so
Starscream's wing mountings were modular as well.
Yeah,
you know,
all-
you had to
all of
remove them.
Right. All of the Decepticon jets based on that mold are all the parts are interchangeable. So let's take a quick look at some Diaclone ads. And this is what I'm talking about when I say animation. When you see this, Harrison, you're going to love it. Check this out.
ダイアクロンレスキュー隊員。彼らの乗る車はロボットに代わり救助に活躍する。メカが光るダイアクロンカーロボット。カーロボット出動。ダイアクロン。シティ・フェアレディは空から急行。君はどれに乗り込むか。宝のカーロボット。ダイアクロン。恐竜のパワーにロボットの機動力。時を超えてやってきた正義の戦士たち。恐竜ロボ。カーロボット隊は移動基地バトルコンボイを完成させた。大型トレーラー、フリーゾンエネルギーの補給、整備ドック、司令基地としての役割を果たす。バトルコンボイの登場でカーロボットの世界が変わる。移動基地バトルコンボイ。
I love it.
That was cool. Note, I saw so many that would become Transformers, you know, in some of them in their original color scheme, some of them not. It cracked me up seeing like 4 Optimuses just coming, because you don't usually see 4 Optimuses. And also seeing like Wheeljack and Optimus fly through the air like that, because they don't do that in the cartoon.
No.
They do. Well, the
Decepticons fly. The Autobots traditionally don't. They need jetpacks.
True. Did you notice also in some shots you could clearly see the little pilot figures inside the? Yeah, Rob noticed.
Yeah, I did. No,
and that also explains why the Dinobots had cockpits and the Insecticons also had cockpits. It didn't make any sense at the time, but there's the answer.
And we've come full circle. We're getting ahead of ourselves now, but we've come full circle now with generations in history, because there's a whole market now for Diaclone recolored repaints of existing molds like Sunstreaker in red and Skids as I think they call him Crosscut in his red mode. They even like do masterpieces of these Diaclone.
Well, let me show
schemes
you.
now.
Let me show you something right now. If I can.
Ultra Magnus actually appeared in his Diaclone color scheme in the trailer for the 1986 movie, which also featured a soundtrack of Lost for Words by Iron Maiden.
Oh shit, that's bizarre. This masterpiece figure here is based on a Japanese police Lamborghini that was from the Diaclone line. But yeah, like you say, they're doing these retro Diaclone color schemes now.
What's his name? It's not Deep Cover. I have Generation Select's Deep Cover. It's the other one version of him. Never mind, I forgot. But I love the idea of a police Lamborghini. It's when you need to get to the crime yesterday.
Right. All right. So I'm just going to continue on with our history lesson. Those are the two main lines that Transformers came from, but there were actually 5 in total. 5 toy lines that are the origins of the Transformers. Toyco came out with the original Shockwave, which was a battery-powered laser blaster with light and sound effect. Ended up being a very important character. Takatoku Toys is responsible for the original Jetfire, which is based on a Macross toy. Am I right? I got that right?
Yeah, Macross, or I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but Macross Plus or something like that. Yes.
Yeah. I believe there was some licensing issues with that because he appeared as Skyfire in the thing, and then he came as Jetfire later.
We'll get there. If you guys also remember the Deluxe Autobots and the Deluxe Insecticons, they were slightly larger than the average. Those came from the Takatoku line. And finally, there's Toy Box, which is responsible for the very popular Omega Supreme, and who was a motorized toy, incidentally. And Skylynx, which was also a motorized toy. So those 5 toy lines were all basically mined for their molds and turned into Transformers here in North America. The 1984 assortment, which is the one that hooked Rob and I when it first came out, was pretty simple. It featured the mini cars, the regular size cars, which includes Optimus, the gun, the tape deck, and the cassettes. That's basically it. The second line, which I do not have a catalog for, but the second line really expanded. It brought in the dinosaurs, the insects, the very first combiner, which was Devastator.
Inferno and Grapple, I believe.
Inferno and Grapple were added to the car lines. They had the new jets with the different wings. Triple Changers came out. We had the first character that we would now call a Titan, which is Omega Supreme. And we had Auto Transformers, which were these kind of crummy jump starters that just snapped open and didn't work very well. The 1986. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I was just going to say, depending on what kind of floor you had, for the there were 2 that actually didn't. They transformed, but they just kind of popped into existence, and then there was 2 that flipped. There was I can't remember the names, but they would roll along the floor and then they'd flip up and they would stop.
Top Spin and Twin Twist.
Thank you. That's the ones.
Thanks, Tim, for this awesome comment, by the way. Really appreciate that.
But my cousin was the one that had all the cool Transformers. He had Omega Supreme.
My cousins had the cool ones too.
He had Optimus Prime. He had Megatron. He had the ones that I wanted, but either couldn't afford or didn't want to get because then they'd have. We were kind of. My cousin and I are very close, and close enough that we're almost brothers in a sense. So whenever we would buy anything, whenever anything was bought, it was always bought. You wouldn't duplicate it. You would always get one for one and one for the other, so you wouldn't have. So you'd have your own, and you wouldn't necessarily fight over it. There's a theory that getting the same thing and you still wouldn't fight over it. But in any case, Yeah, it was my cousin that had the cool ones, and I ended up just kind of peripherally. Yes, thank you, Tim's Vinyl Confession. Your book is still coming, I think.
Yeah, have you been receiving your updates?
I have been.
Yeah.
So I'm very patiently waiting for the book. But yeah, that's basically my story. I kind of came to Transformers a little bit late. I was 14, 15 when it came out. So well, at least according to my dad, I was too old for those kind of toys.
Right.
And regardless of that, I still did get my fair share. But in any case, yeah. So like I said, I came to Transformers maybe a little bit, maybe a little past the
Expiry date?
the expiry date. Yes. But now looking at a collector with a collector's eye, there is no cap to that anymore.
100%. And you know, Rob, with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, I hung on to toys for as long as I could.
Yeah.
But with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, I should have hung on 2 more years, because there were still some really awesome Transformers and some really awesome Joes that I am now buying secondhand at redonkulous prices.
Yeah. I made the mistake of letting they survived my niece. My niece was very careful with them. But my nephew, when his cousin came over and I said, yes, you can play with the Transformers, suddenly I had those little rub stickers missing. Parts were broken. Guns had gone missing. Guns I'd had since the original release of the Transformers. So this is like mid 90s and almost early 2000s that I allowed this to happen. Some of the stuff survived. Some of it is, if you'll excuse the pun, is showing the ravages of age, and some of it I am seriously, if I see a group again together of the tapes, particularly Rumble and Ravage, or Laserbeak and Frenzy. Oh, you son of a gun!
This is a reissue set. Comes with Laserbeak, Frenzy, Rumble, and one of the dinosaur cassettes that was a later part of the line.
Yeah, I saw the cassettes in Walmart when they had the reissues.
Yeah.
And I balked on them because I thought, okay, they're going to be around for a bit. So when I went back, they're gone. Son of a gun, they're gone.
There's Rumble.
Yeah, I have Rumble.
Oh,
he's missing his weapons though.
Rumble.
Okay, question.
I have a 2020 Gimletron and a 2020 Laserbeak.
Yeah,
But Laserbeak's over there.
Harrison, are they micro cassette sized, or are they a different size?
I think they're
There's the
a
vintage.
little bigger. The Soundwave that they came with is the same height as G1 Soundwave, but I think
I have this one here.
I'm not sure. Basically, I can.
Well, you know what, Harrison? Don't worry about it right this second.
Yeah.
Regardless, I know Rob's. I have a nice collection of cassettes. This isn't all of them. I've also got a lot of masterpiece cassettes, which are also micro cassette sized, but very different.
You know what's hard? You know what are hard to find? At least for me, the Autobot cassettes.
Yes, very hard to find.
Rewind and was it Rewind and
Eject?
Eject, yeah.
Steeljaw and Ramhorn.
Yeah. The blast. I my cousin had Blaster too, so and he was one I wanted, but
my cousins had the Supreme Class Starscream and the Cybertron leader Megatron. Those were good ones.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is, and my nephew, the one that I went out of my way. I went out of my way to try and find a Generation 2, anything, and there was nothing in the stores at that time. This would have been mid to late 90s, and there was nothing in the stores. Nothing.
We'll get to the history then, but mid to late 90s, Generation 2 was, I think, well on the way out.
I'm gonna get there.
Also, I have Bayverse Gimletron.
I'm gonna get there, but let's continue on with the 86 line.
Yes,
which is the one that I do have a catalog for. This introduced the movie characters, which were an entire new evolution of Transformers because they were more trying to do a cartoon act. The cartoon forms came first, and they tried to make Transformers to the cartoon designs, which
except they used preliminary designs
and a lot of preliminary, but you can kind of see Galvatron there didn't quite make it.
No.
They also introduced the Autobot triple changers that year. They introduced the last of the Diaclones, which was Ultra Magnus. He was the last of those Japanese origin figures. They introduced a brand new form of combination that was known in Japan as Scramble City.
Right.
But basically, we're talking about the aerial bots, the Protectobots, the Combaticons, and the Stunticons, which were all interchangeable, unlike Devastator the previous year.
I think they only needed 5, not 6.
They only needed 5. There's one.
There's an aerial bot.
Skydive.
Yep.
There you go. So that is what I'm talking about.
I thought that they were kind of chintzing out because the arms weren't all that good and the heads were small. And,
I thought that Devastator was a much more fun combiner because
I drooled over Devastator when I saw when I first saw him on the small screen.
You're talking about Revenge of the Fallen, of course, here.
What generation are you talking about? I'm not talking about the Bay films. I'm talking about the 1984 when I saw the Dinobots, and when I first saw Devastator, my jaw hit the floor. I was not expecting this. Like, and how were they going to turn this into a toy?
Yeah.
But no, I'm not standing directly under his scrotum. Nothing like that. No, nothing like that. These were the originals. These were the construction vehicles.
I know.
And like I said, I absolutely drooled over Devastator when I had been looking for. There was a knockoff version that was actually slightly bigger. Somebody mentioned, by the way, I just remembered this. Somebody mentioned that Optimus Prime had a Pepsi.
Yes, Tim did.
Yes. And if you are a fan of a guy named Phelan Porter, I believe his name is. He's a Canadian collector, and he did a feature on the Convoy version that has the Pepsi stuff on it, and you can actually put a bottle of Pepsi on the truck, and it will carry it.
It's awesome.
Like,
that is so awesome.
And it's so random. Like,
yeah.
Pepsi and Optimus Prime, it just doesn't make any sense.
Of course, now there are so many brand Transformers crossovers that it doesn't even seem unusual by today's standards, but back then it certainly was.
Certainly was. And there are other. Yeah, he has this toy channel, or kind of a toy channel, and he shows some of the more bizarre crossovers, and that Pepsi Convoy is a particular unusual an unusual variant on the Optimus Prime or Convoy as he was known. Sorry, I forget how much younger you are, and that you're just pulling my leg when I talk about the the older stuff, but this was the stuff that I became aware of and was I watched the Bayformers. The first one I liked it. The rest of them, yeah.
I'm with you.
They didn't work for me.
I'm with you.
Bumblebee, the more recent Bumblebee film, did work for me because
too.
they actually used the Generation 1 look
Yep.
to the to Optimus Prime to the other Autobots. Also, if you've been watching, there's it's a Battle for Cybertron on Netflix.
War for Cybertron, yeah.
Yeah, War for Cybertron. And that is, I was watching that the other day, and they do some really cool stuff with the G1 characters, especially the likes of Unicron and Galvatron. I was really impressed with what they did and how they were able to incorporate them into the story without making it seem like they were shoehorning them in, and just it wasn't just fan service. It was more or less along the lines that these characters are now as much a part of the story as the G1s. And but yeah, I actually liked the last one, the last Kingdom. Thank you. Yeah. With the Predacons and the
Maximals.
Maximals. Thank you. My brain just is in Friday mode. But yeah, the Predacons and the Maximals, and the way they've updated them, and how they very much tried to get the sound of Rat Trap's voice in the character, I thought was really extremely well done. That the essence of the voice from the original Beast Wars was there, but it was altered enough that I still accepted it as the character, and I thought it was cool. I thought the addition of the Predacons and the Maximals in that lore was pretty cool. And I don't know if you were a fan of Beast Wars.
Boy, am I ever!
But I was a huge fan. In fact, I was in my early 20s and I was watching it, and I was like, I've watched it just recently, and it has.
I did too.
The stories have not lost a thing.
Stop jumping the gun. I'm gonna get to Beast Wars.
Okay, sorry.
You know what? Let's continue where I was with the movie.
Sorry. I don't mean to. I didn't mean to hog the conversation and move on.
Sorry.
So okay, let's continue with was it Diaclone or whatever?
I was on 1986. I was on 86.
Okay.
So two big things for me personally happened in 86. Obviously, killing off Optimus Prime. In other words, killing off a toy that you had that you loved. That it's like, how do I work him into my storylines now? Yeah. And then I was like, okay, no problem. I'll just keep following the Marvel Comics storyline. Marvel Comics killed him off about 3 months later. So he was doomed. The other thing that I didn't like about the 86 line was the new Cybertronian vehicles. I'm like, we're getting away from what I really liked, those die-cast collector-looking cars with the opening doors. Well, a lot of these new ones, they didn't even have clear windshields. They had painted windshields. Yeah. And Hot Rod was the only one that didn't. And that wasn't clicking for me. But fortunately, Transformers came back in 1987 with a new subline called the Headmasters. And I will discuss the Headmasters in more detail when we get into our own lists. But the thing about Headmasters was they brought back a feature that I liked. Transformers with opening cockpits that you could put figures inside. And that was something I really enjoyed about it. Yes, they continued on with Cybertronian vehicle modes, but they were kind of cooler. They were chunkier. They came with more weapons. So Headmasters kind of kept me on board for one more year. To go along with the Headmasters, there was another subline called Target Masters. And both of these lines involved smaller action figures that transformed into either the head or the weapon of the larger robot. Like I said, we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail when we get down to the lists. But what is it, Rob?
Oh no.
Oh.
I sorry, I'll bring it in later. But
Okay,
it's something that's kind of related, but it was something that they were trying to do, introduce smaller Transformers.
Micromasters.
in fact,
Yeah.
Then there's Action Masters. There's all sorts of.
In fact,
I'll let
that
LeBrain
happens
tell
when I
you
get
all
to
about it.
1989. But 1988, which is the year that I dropped off the map, I just couldn't hang on any longer. But there were a couple neat innovations in 88, including these guys, the Pretenders, not the rock band. That doesn't look like a Transformer, does it?
No.
In fact, it's barely articulated. The legs don't move. The arms only swivel like that. No head articulation. But how did it? What was the? How did the ad go? Pretenders hide the Transformer inside. So you pop this guy open along the like that, and there's a robot inside. And so this guy transforms into a very, very rudimentary vehicle that basically looks like nothing without his accessories attached to him. So it's a bit of what we call a parts former, meaning that he's really not much of a transformer without all these extra parts that you have to snap on. So, this is starting to lose some fans. It's way far away from what Transformers was about. Then the following year, what Rob alluded to, the Micromasters.
Yeah.
Where they basically tried to horn in on the Micro Machines by Galoob.
Yes.
I think they were Galoob. And Rob,
I had so many the Micro Machine Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, me too.
And mine all went when I moved.
I know.
I couldn't hold on to it. There may be an Enterprise and maybe Deep Space Nine is around here somewhere, but most of them are gone.
That's too bad. They were good.
I don't know if I kept it, and if I didn't, I'm stupid if I didn't. I actually had an alien Micro Machine.
Ooh.
It had the Nostromo. It had an alien creature and a bunch of other stuff. It was really cool, and I don't know if I kept it or not. If it's around here somewhere, I'll be honestly surprised. My mom might even have it, and has got it in a box somewhere. So
worth a look if you happen to be going over for Christmas dinner.
No, for me it was the Adventure People and Star Wars that I generally grew up with. Good. But the Transformers were kind of the last gasp of my childhood, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
At that time.
I was just looking to see what I actually have here for show and tell. But I don't have my Micromasters. But basically, like Rob was saying, they were the smaller cars, even smaller than the mini cars, and very simple transformations, getting further away from the origins of the line again. So losing more fans. The Micromasters came 4 per card. There were 4 of these little cars or planes or jets or whatever in a car on a card.
These are different than the ones I'm talking about.
Oh.
But we'll get into that when we get into the lists.
The 1989 line also featured some reissues of classic characters such as Jazz, Bumblebee, Grimlock, and Starscream. All characters that had been killed off in the Marvel Comics or the TV series. Yeah. They came back as Pretenders. So they now had these weird armored shells. Now here's the weird thing about Pretenders to me. The Decepticon Pretenders were all monstrous forms. Makes sense. The Autobot Pretenders were all generally human forms. Mm-hmm. But given that, say, Grimlock is, say, I don't know, conservatively speaking, maybe a 50-foot tall robot, we're talking about an even larger Pretender shell that's supposed to be a human.
Generation 1 Megatron, I don't think there's much of a problem with.
But he shrunk. They had the shrinking to explain that. Of course,
The
this
Grimlock
all
could just
alludes
shrink.
back to the original, the micro change origins, where scale wasn't an issue. We can talk about scale more when we get to the 2009 film too, because Bay absolutely refused to have shrinking.
Good on him.
Finally, the last gasp of the original line was something called the Action Masters, and that was the last straw. Non-transforming
They're terrible.
Transformers. I wish I had one for show and tell.
Or
I have
these-
Blaster.
Are these the ones that are just basically figures? They're not
Mhm.
even they're not transformable. I think the commercial goes, "Yes, we've given up our transformation to make us even more powerful," and it's like, but how can you be called Transformers if you don't transform?
Well, Rob, you see, they came with transforming partners that transformed from a really large, awkward-looking weapon into a kind of interesting-looking robotic beast.
Yeah,
I have Blaster, but I can't find him. Blaster came with a weapon that kind of transformed from a jetpack into a big, long rifle.
Now that bit's cool.
It was, I actually like my Blaster Action Master. They are fun. They're exactly the same scale as the G.I. Joe figures. But that was it. That was the last gasp, except, for a few stragglers in Europe. That was the cancellation of the Transformers line, and the Transformers comic ended in 91. But as you saw earlier, well, I already showed my G2, Transformers G2 comic book. Generation 2 brought back a lot of the original toys in sometimes new colors, other times basically identical, like G2 Prime. I think the only difference was he came with 2 different guns. He had different stickers and shit like that. I think his trailer was black, but the truck was the same. Anyway, I do have some G2 figures to show off here.
There were a couple new molds, for
There were a
example,
couple
Generation
results,
2
which I will
Megatron.
also show you. But a lot of them were just straight reissues. So here's G1 Beachcomber.
no, that's
And
Sea
there's-
Spray. You have
Sorry, Sea Spray. Sorry,
That's
yes,
Sea
I
Spray.
have Beachcomber though. I swear. There's G2. He's got the chromed blue, and you can see he's darker. I added the G2 sticker myself because he didn't have a sticker at all.
Right.
Eventually, as Harrison said, they did start introducing brand new molds. Megatron being the first, because they couldn't reissue a gun anymore. Times had already changed that much that you could not reissue a gun.
Well,
And I have G2 Tank Megatron, and he's gorgeous, but he's in storage.
Thing is that to this day, that you cannot take a G1 Megatron on a plane.
You have to get a firearms
Exactly.
permit here, I think, in Australia, just to own Masterpiece Megatron.
This is the weird thing about our society. But in any case, back in 84, they didn't give a rat's patootie.
Not at all.
About
Here's
that.
Masterpiece Megatron right here. And I had to remove an orange cap from his barrel, and I believe I also had to remove one from his fusion cannon. I can't remember, but
there's
I
two
definitely had
Masterpiece
to remove
Megatrons.
one from his barrel. That was the only way they could sell it. But I've never transformed him, but he does transform into a doesn't that look gorgeous?
Yeah.
He does transform into a pistol.
Now, are we going to talk knockoffs as well? Because I remember
Sure.
going into a what was it, a Towers store at the time?
I
And-
used to find them at Bargain Heralds.
Yes. And seeing a what looked like Megatron, but it wasn't Megatron. It was a gun, but it transformed differently and it looked different.
I'm sorry you missed it, but that was in the Microman ads that I ran.
Ah, okay.
My friend
And-
Jason has a knockoff of that gun.
Yeah,
It's a nice toy.
I eyed it and wanted it, but I did not have a wallet at that time to put money in, so let alone money to pay for stuff like that. So but yeah, it was, though I do have to admit, when G2 came out and my My nephew, yes, Beachcombers is a Canadian classic.
Bruno Gerussi.
Yep. Had his own cooking show for a while.
He sure did.
Yeah.
He sure did. Bruno Gerussi's Kitchen Express, I believe it was called.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah.
Rob, we had a knockoff frenzy because I had a cousin. Did you say it was your cousin that destroyed your toys? Is that what you said?
No, it was my nephew's
Your
cousin.
nephew's cousin. I had an actual cousin. My sister got the Frenzy and Ravage 2-pack, whatever
Something
it was.
like that, yeah.
Like Kudus looks like Bruno Gerussi. Yeah, in a way, I suppose. My cousin ripped off Frenzy's leg right out of the box.
Oh.
And I remember I was so upset that I started crying because even though it was my sister's toy, my cousin destroyed so much of our stuff. I just had it. And he's like, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Fuck off. Stop wrecking our toys, you little shit." But anyway, my sister had to make do with a knockoff Frenzy that was bought at was Byway around back then, maybe?
Yeah, and they were everywhere. You couldn't turn around and not find. Like, I remember going into a store and you would see like aisles and aisles of knockoff tapes.
Shockwaves.
Yeah. Shockwave was the big one.
Yeah.
The tapes were another one. And then I once saw a knockoff Grimlock, but I had not seen one since. Grimlock's another one that I didn't get that I wanted desperately.
And do you remember that this is partially the reason why they introduced the rub sign stickers?
Yes.
It was that's the only way to know if you have a real Transformer. I remember the ads.
Yep, the little rub stickers.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, hot fingers, and you get the.
Yeah.
Although mine, I think, have suffered the ravages of time. No pun intended. Sorry.
I'm just going to wrap up my history lesson with the end of G2. Aside from the reissues, which included Prime, a small selection of the cars, small selection of jets, small selection of Dinobots, and all the Constructicons, they started issuing some new gimmicks. And unfortunately, a lot of them weren't very good.
No.
Shooting water, very kiddie, very gimmicky.
We'll see that.
There was another one that I actually like the one toy, and I will show it off to you. I believe this guy's name is Ransack. He turns into a World War II Corsair.
Nice.
Ooh, I love that.
And he's part of the rotor force. And his gimmick is that his propeller is a rotor that you wind up manually. You push a little trigger button here, and then it flies off. And it works.
Oh.
But what is the point of this guy shooting his propeller at you?
Exactly.
There's a scene in the G2 comic book where it shows these guys shooting their propellers at other characters, and then they have to like physically grab their propeller and reattach it. Like it's like a dumb toy idea, and kids can sense that. But isn't that a nice little Corsair?
Mm.
And very G1 with the clear cockpit, you know. So G2 did have some shining moments. I wouldn't put the rotor force in general as a shining moment, but that toy, absolutely. What else did G2 have? GoBots. They acquired the name GoBots, and they issued an entire line of Dinky Cart compatible Transformers under the subline of GoBots. So the idea was that you could use these with your pre-existing Matchbox or Hot Wheels Dinky cars on those same tracks. They were totally compatible. There was even a character called GoBots, which I thought was pretty dumb. They had a subline called Cyberjets. Hey, there's an actual GoBot.
That's an actual GoBot.
Jeep Creeper.
Yeah. That was my substitute for Hound.
Yeah.
At the time.
I always wanted a Leader 1.
I've got a Leader 1, but I can't find him. I had one. I'll see if he's in here.
G2 also repackaged episodes of the cartoon with new CGI.
Rob likes those. I remember Rob was telling me about those.
Oh God.
And finally, the last one I want to show off here is this is G2 Hoist, I believe, which looks nothing like G1 Hoist, except that he's still tow truck. And this is called an auto roller, I believe. No, this isn't an auto roller, is it?
Roll it and you'll see.
Auto rollers are the kind where you roll them and they start auto transforming. This is something else. This has a different kind of auto transforming gimmick, but I don't want to fiddle with them on screen. Anyway, there's my G2 hoist. A lot of the G2 figures are heavily criticized for having really bright neon colors.
Oh yeah.
Okay, guys. I just found this in my box of Transformers and stuff.
What is that?
Danger equipment testing. I have no idea why I have this.
Wow.
But yeah, it was in my box of stuff. So
Well, Rob, just be careful.
yeah, there might be some. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to distract.
Nope, that's cool.
It just struck me as odd.
That was the end of the Transformers line, essentially.
Yeah.
They weren't selling like they used to. A lot of the kids already had hand-me-down Transformers from older brothers, and parents didn't want to keep buying the same old stuff. The line came to its demise. One funny thing is the G2 comic, which was a direct continuation of the G1 comic, ended abruptly at issue number 12. And it was, while I say abruptly, it was not without anticipation. The writer of the G2 comic, Mr. Simon Furman, named the villain of the G2 comic right from the very first issue. He named the character G-Axis, which is a pun meaning G-Axis. Just Axis, just fucking cancel us.
We're getting a new one of him coming in Legacy next year.
The character lives on. And that's a character that originated in the comics. One last thing I want to show about the comics before we get to our lists, which I promise are still coming. There was a brief period in time. Oh, by the way, there's a Bruce Springsteen knockoff on the cover of issue number 14 with the original hoist. There was a brief period in Transformers history where they were included as a legitimate part of the mainstream Marvel universe. And there's the proof right there, issue number 3. Spider-Man in symbiote suit, no less.
Yes.
This is right after Secret Wars where he acquired it.
Right. Now, were they also not part of the G.I. Joe universe for a brief period?
I didn't grab one of those issues to show off tonight, but they're right over there. G.I. Joe versus the Transformers, 4-issue limited series.
I believe there was even a Joe crossover for an episode of the cartoon.
Old Snake. Rob, do you want to tell that story? Old Snake?
You know what? I don't know. I remember vaguely the story behind it, but you can probably tell it better than I can.
I don't remember the story at all, but I remember the setting was the 2000 and what was it? When did the movie take place? 2005?
The far off year of
2005. So this would have taken place in the 2006 version of season 3 Transformers, so the future.
Yes.
And therefore 20 years into the future of G.I. Joe. But the lead character was named Old Snake, and he was voiced by Chris Latta. And at the very end of the episode, he's wandering off into the sunset going, they don't make terrorists like they used to.
Yep.
And I tell you, Rob, I'm not shitting you, man. I had
I watched
on my arm
3.
when that happened. Because the whole episode, you're thinking, is that Cobra Commander? Is that guy got something to do with Cobra Commander? And then he fucking does it at the end. I didn't even like the cartoon, and I was like, yeah.
It was probably one of the highlights of that truncated season 3. I think it was.
Season 3 was pretty long. It was 30 episodes.
Truncated, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Well, then I must be thinking of the Headmasters.
Season 4 was
3 episodes.
There we go. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Originally intended to be 5.
I didn't know that, but that makes sense because 5 was the standard.
Yeah, they cut it down, and I think I read that the writers of those episodes realized that they have to introduce the new characters at a rate of like 1 every 80 seconds or something.
Right.
Because of how many new characters.
Pressure.
No pressure. Well, we've done the history of the Transformers up to the cancellation of G2.
Yep.
So what we've decided in advance between Harrison and myself is as we go through the list, he's going to kind of fill in some of the blanks because you're going basically from that point on in chronological order. Am I right? Basically.
Yeah, my list is in chronological order.
Perfect.
And it's going to end basically 2020. So
right now.
Oh.
It ends at the end of the show. Is when your list ends. Anything that comes out after your list is not eligible. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with Harrison picking up the story. Rob and I are going to be non-chronological. We're just going to talk about whatever we picked. So that's the plan. We are now an hour into the show. I told Harrison I thought this was going to take half an hour, but this was so much fun. Let's get to the list. Cinco de Listo.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You got my fingers in a baseball. Cinco de Listo. The pentagram made crystal. Cinco de Listo. Got my bones left in the pixel. Cinco de Listo. One bullet shy of a pistol. Cinco de Listo. Cinco de Listo. Cinco de Listo. Cinco de Listo.
I'm going to mute myself because my pizza's here. Harrison, go ahead.
All right, my turn to talk about the history of that. Useless information, activate. All right, so as Mike alluded to, when basically at the end of G2 by its cancellation, the franchise was on death's door. A major revamp was needed, and that came in the form of Beast Wars in 1996, which celebrated its 25th anniversary this year.
God, I'm so old.
And it was a very controversial decision to go for the beasts. You know, the Transformers now transformed into beasts, not cars. They were all organic. And the G1 purists, who seem to have been around forever, it seems, they whined about that a lot. But this basically major revamp was exactly what the brand needed. But what if I told you that McDonald's had a hand in this beast direction?
Would not surprise me.
Because it's a recent revelation. In 1995, Hasbro went to McDonald's with their proposal for the Happy Meal toys. And they had like three main ideas that they were going with. One of them was roll and convert. This is not for like the whole line. This is just for their Happy Meal ideas. Yeah. Roll and convert vehicles, as in you rolled them and they would automatically transform themselves. Mm-hmm. Then there was roll and convert beasts, which is, the same thing. And then it was fold out beasts, which is your usual tinker, fiddle till it goes from beast to an animal. And McDonald's, for the Happy Meals, went with fold out beasts. And so then in 1996, the Beast Wars toy line came out. And this major revamp actually gave us a lot of the standard, how would I put this? Basically, I guess I just called the standard procedures and standards that continue to this day. It introduced size classes. You know, how we've got Deluxe, Voyager, Leader. Back then it was a bit different. I think there was like Ultra, Mega, Basic. Maybe, I think Deluxe, yeah. I know, I'm not sure of the exact ones, but these size classes basically allowed a retailer. First it standardized the price points. Each size class had a price point, but each size class also had the same size box. So a retailer could order, a case of ultra classes, know exactly how much room they're going to take up, how much they're going to cost, a profit and all that. Made it easier for the retailers, more enticing. Now, on the toys side of things, Beast Wars also introduced weapon storage, in the sense that every weapon and accessory stored on or inside the figure to prevent them getting lost. And usually they'd be part of the animal, like there was Cheetah's gut gun. And I believe now should be a good time to run the ad.
Sure. So Harrison has sent me a couple of ads here. And I guess this is the very first Beast Wars ad.
I assume so.
And I'll just mention that Takara did a reissue of the Prime and Megatron that you'll see in this ad, which you'll not be familiar with otherwise. But I do have the reissued versions, and they're kind of neat.
Yeah, Primal and Megatron were originally a bat and a croc, not the gorilla and T-Rex that they were in the cartoon.
Wow. Yeah. Well, here it comes. Here, take a look.
In the beginning came the beasts and all that creeps, crawls, and flies. But nature lies, they're robots in disguise. Beast Wars, the next step in Transformer evolution is here. New Maximals, heroic animals battle the evil reptile and insect forces of the Predacons. They fight tooth and claw. Heroic Dinobot attacks. Morphs from Raptor Beast into vicious robot with spinning Velociraptor blades. Evil Waspinator full of venom changes like never before, from insect to high-tech, and puts the sting on Cheetor. But there's more to Cheetor than meets the eye. Under the skin lurks a robot within, with hidden weapons firing. But treacherous Tarantula mutates and counterattacks. Charging, slashing, blasting, all new Beast Wars. The next step in Transformer evolution is here. And when you buy the Maximo Predacon 2-pack, you get a free Beast Wars comic book. Beast Wars! Each sold separately.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you get the water squirting that you were alluding to earlier. You saw Cheetah's gun. I love how they refer to him as Heroic Dinobot, because he was originally a Predacon that defected. But you wouldn't know that at that time.
No, I think this predates any of that fiction, Harrison. And I think that comic that they talk about being in the package is sort of like a micro universe that never went anywhere.
Right.
If I remember correctly, you'll notice that Optimus Prime and Megatron weren't even named in that ad.
No.
Or Primal, I should say. But if I remember correctly, those characters were originally in that comic book continuations of.
Yeah, in Japan they were as well.
Right,
because he was known as Convoy in Japan, so it's not like you could do like Convoyal or something like that, as you did with Prime and Primal.
I was muted at this time, but you mentioned how the G1 fans threw a fit.
Truck, not monkey.
Truck, not monkey was the slogan in the early internet. Truck spelled T-R-U-K-K, and I'm sure they misspelled monkey as well.
M-U-N-K-Y.
There you go.
So,
Kimberly does not like.
No, it's almost dinner time, so I may have to step out just for a bit.
Gimletron demands your attention.
Yes.
Beast Wars was backed by a TV show. I think it was the first CGI animated TV show. It was CanCon, actually. It was animated in Canada. It was Mainframe Entertainment. The funny bit is that in Canada it was known as Beasties.
Because we couldn't have the word wars.
Yes.
No. What was your Star Wars?
I remember, Mike, you corrected me when I called it Beasties one time, and you went, "No, it's Beast." Yes, you did.
Was that at the record store days?
I can't remember if I can't remember where it happened, but I just. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry, you corrected me. I called it Beasties, and then you went, "No, it's Beast Wars," and I went,
"Jeez, I would do that too. I would."
Okay.
Totally sounds like something I would do. No wonder so many kids at school hated me. Anyway,
now despite all the criticism, Beast Wars went on to be known as the fictional apex of the brand. You know, even to this day, people still compare things and say, like, it's not as good as Beast Wars was. And it introduced a lot of lore that comes to this day, the idea of sparks and, basically, clarifying a lot of things about Transformers. Oh, yes, and of course, Megatron's iconic, yes. A lot of iconic characters. So then, Beast Wars' sequel in 1999, Beast Machines, basically clunked the brand right back to where it was at the end of G2.
Yeah.
And did all of Beast Wars' hard work. It was not very well received. And that's all I have to say about Beast Machines. So now we enter a period where for a long time, for many years, all of the fiction, Transformers fiction from this period was imported from Japan and dubbed in English rather than created in English and then would go over to Japan. And so we start with Robots in Disguise, 2001. That was nothing much interesting there. Then you got Universe in 2002, which was a filler line that mainly consisted of redecos of older characters. So older toys.
Significantly, though, Harrison, Robots in Disguise was not just to everybody. At least it was a return to vehicle modes for some of us.
True,
and if, you know what? If I'm not mistaken, a lot of original G1 toys saw a reissue in new colors during Robots in Disguise, because I could swear in the other room.
G2.
Hold on, I'm going to go grab...
Laser Rod Optimus was repainted into Robots in Disguise Scourge, which was retroactively named as Nemesis Prime. That was the origin.
I might have a Robots in Disguise.
But yes, for the sake of my experience, Robots in Disguise wasn't very significant. And but it did have, some G1, G2 toys brought forward as figures in that line. And yes, its major claim to fame was that it gave the origin of Nemesis Prime.
I'm wrong, but it's some later Transformers line. It's a reissue of G1
Universe. Yeah, Universe basically had reissues and redecos of older toys and stuff. It was basically a filler line. Then we get
cheap way to get a repro of a great original toy that Rob and I remember. Cheap way to get it.
Yep.
I don't. I actually prefer this color scheme. It's camo. It's desert camo. Anyway, that's all.
Then let me just check quickly. Okay, yeah, not that one. Then we get to the Unicron trilogy, and it started with Armada in 2002. Then it went to Energon in 2003, and these were not very well received in the fiction. They were very rushed. So there was lots of mistakes. There was the voice acting wasn't considered the best, and the source material was stripped of a lot of its nuance and seriousness. The flavor is in the cartoon for Armada, they ran out of plot basically and had to I think Unicron gets deactivated, reactivated, deactivated again because they had to do something. And then Energon comes along and they did the opposite. They're like, we're not going to run out of plot this time. So it was just so much filler in Energon. And then Cybertron. Then first in 2003, we also get to alternators. I really think alternators is a really cool idea. It was known as Binal Tech in Japan, and it was Transformers that transformed into licensed vehicles with interiors and like a boot and bonnet. I think that's a really cool idea.
For my uncle, I think it was a Dodge Ram pickup truck, Optimus Prime, a red Dodge Ram pickup truck. I bought it for my uncle.
Optimus was the Dodge Ram. There was an Impreza somewhere. There was a Dodge Viper somewhere. Lots of General Motors, which is a theme that popped up in
we'll see more of them later.
2007 movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get to Cybertron. Cybertron was the concluding part of the Unicron trilogy. It was received a bit better than the previous two. And it was CGI animated, but they'd basically scanned the toys for the show model. So we have this period of extreme cartoon accuracy. Now, this is where we get to my first list entry. Just going to that lot of history there. Going to backtrack slightly. My first experience with the Transformers brand was Beast Wars. I would have been 4 or 5. We were in a DVD rental store, and we got a Beast Wars DVD. I don't remember much about it. Now, but Cybertron is where I got my first Transformers toys. Now, my list entry, I thought it was the oldest Transformer I owned, but then Lana's comment yesterday reminded me I actually own an older one. It's a McDonald's Happy Meal Unicron based on Energon Unicron. And
hang on, put that up again. I want to.
He's very simple.
It almost looks like a Death Star.
I was just going to say,
Energon Unicron had that Death Star-like thing, and he's only got 2 on. So his transformation is very simple because it's a McDonald's toy. You basically do that. It had a cool light-up cube inside him when you press a button, but mine's out of batteries. So not many people can say their first Transformer was Unicron.
True.
But now it's for my list entry. The first two proper Transformers I got was a Cybertron Blur and a Cybertron Long Rack. I don't have either of those because my Cybertron Blur, it was a very heavy shell former, but the geniuses at Hasbro thought of the brilliant idea to make the shoulder joints, which connect the arms, the body, and the backpack, which was the car. They made that out of clear plastic. So that cracked and broke, you know, very shortly, but it happened inevitably. And my Cybertron Long Rack, I traded that to a friend for my first list entry. Oh, please do play the Cybertron ad. It gives, I forgot, the main gimmick of Cybertron. The
Cybertron ad. It must be this one here. I hope I've picked the right one.
The key to a new Transformers world is in your hands. Transformers Cybertron. New Cyber Planet keys unlock hidden powers. Optimus Prime launches an attack to battle the evil Megatron, but the giant Starscream has his own Cyber Planet key and won't go down without a fight. Unlock the power. Transformers Cybertron. Sold separately. Batteries not included. You can go to Transformers.com. Ask a parent first.
Ask a parent first, Harrison.
So yes, the main gimmick of Cybertron were these Cyber Planet keys, where you plug them into. This is
I had one. It was a motorcycle.
Yeah, I've got a couple kicking around. The main gimmick was that you'd get these cyber keys, you'd plug them into ports on the character, and weapons would detach, weapons would flip out. Sometimes it would actually be necessary to fully transform the figure. And I think that the cyber keys are the best gimmick of the Transformers brand, other than the fact that they transform. Because not only did they aid with weapon storage, you know, they aid with transformation, a lot of the time they were inobtrusive because they only they weren't like a water squirting gimmick in like an oversized gun. They accentuated the figure, but they also had these little keys that were just so cool to collect.
Right.
There were so many different ones. They were like really cool. You know, they were all interchangeable with different people, with different figures, and I just loved them. But finally, we get to my list entry. It's the deluxe class Hot Shot.
Okay, I'm going to put them up on the screen here. Now, in the G1 universe, they consider this character the same as Hot Rod.
Yeah. Yes. In Energon and Armada, Hot Rod was the Kid Appeal character. He was yellow, but I much prefer this metallic blue that he got in Cybertron. He's still the Kid Appeal character. He's the Bumblebee, basically. If it wasn't for the 2007 movie, this could still be the Kid Appeal character of the brand if they survived this long. But I consider this guy to be a perfect mold that still holds up to this day. He's got no backpack. Even though he's got the whole top of the car on his back, it's incredibly thin, and that skirt piece, if you want, even accentuates the look. He's got very little kibble anyway. His bonnet forms the shoulders, and it gives him this really cool broad-shouldered look.
Yeah.
His head sculpt as well. It's got a visor, which looks cool. It's got Optimus Prime points, but it also has the eyes. His arms manage that door kibble pretty well. He's actually got molded missiles in there. His legs as well. They're chunky, but they're not overly encumbered by anything. What you were getting to about him looking like Hot Rod, take a look at his chest. Do you see those headlight bits there?
Absolutely. Those are Hot Rod's headlights.
Those are Hot Rod's headlights. And when I plug the Cyber Planet key in the back,
there's Hot Rod's wings.
There's Hot Rod's wings, yes.
There you go.
His spoiler wings.
Sorry, Rob.
And because the transformation is so simple, I'll just do it up now. Hot Shot basically transforms into an approximation of a Chrysler ME112.
That's beautiful. That was quick.
Yeah, it's a very simple and easy transformation, but it's satisfying and effective. And the simple transformation doesn't take away from the look. See, I really like this guy. I think he's a high point of the deluxe price point. And I think he holds up even to this day.
I like that figure, Harrison. And it also has lots of clear plastic, which is, as I've been alluding to earlier, I like clear cockpits and windshields.
Yeah, but thankfully on the cockpits, because it's not a vital joint, it won't break over time.
I will say this. My first Transformer was G1 Blue Streak, or it was one of my first. I got him secondhand from the next door neighbor, and the very first thing that breaks on every one of those Datsun toys is the joint at the windshield where the windshield connects to the head. It's that clear plastic. It always gives. Terrible joint.
Hotshot also came with a gun, but because I traded for this, it didn't come with a gun. This is actually Blur's Cyber Planet key. It's the same one that came with Hotshot, but it was from my Blur because I didn't get any of the accessories when I traded for this guy. But I'm glad I did because I love this guy.
Nice figure. I like it a lot. Great number 5. Great start, Harrison, as we hit the 1 hour and 15-minute mark. I didn't say it was going to be short tonight. Rob, please enlighten us with your number 5.
Well, my stories are going to be a little bit maybe thinner and not as maybe I won't go quite as to say they're pathetic, but the Transformers that I've chosen have survived probably more relatives than a lot of people would allow their kids to get to. Something that you mentioned earlier, you kept mentioning the McDonald's toys and how they were.
Oh wow!
This was I can't remember the name of it, but it was a Transformers toy that came from McDonald's at the time, and I can't remember but it does have the transforming feature, but it also has a pullback function that does 2 things. One, it drives the car. It makes the robot walk. So that was just something that was there were 3 of these guys. There was a race car, there was a hovercraft, and there was something else, and I can't remember what it was. So my number 5 I was getting kind of into the Transformers, and this guy became a favorite character of mine. And I remember picking him up because A, my cousin didn't have him, and B, he had my criteria for transforming is that it had to have 2 arms that came out so that if you had a gun, it would be good.
Right.
And it had to have a decent looking head. So my number 5 is G1 Beachcomber. He's a bit roughed up. Somebody got chewing on the wheels. I don't know who, but it wasn't me. And so this is where I got. He is. I like his transformation. It's simple. It's straightforward. And I like the fact that unlike other of the small characters, he actually has a pop-up head and arms that actually look like arms. They're not just claws or like tailpipes like Huffer or
Brawn just had hooks.
Yeah, Brawn.
Starscream, you had to plug his fists onto these stumps.
Exactly. That's my number 5. That's G1 Beachcomber.
Who was a pacifist. He was a hippie in the cartoon.
Yes, he was the hippie
so
of
was
the
First Aid too,
the Transformers.
First Aid was a pacifist, but he wasn't a hippie.
Yeah, in the cartoon, there's an episode where First Aid doesn't want to fight, and all the rest of the Protector bots are trying to get him to combine to be part of Defensor.
Oh man, so political. My anecdote. Well, if I had anything to show off for Beachcomber, I have my G1 next to me, but I also have a neat third-party one that was done by iGears, I believe, and he's sort of like an MP-size Beachcomber, and I bought another third-party sticker set from Repro Labels of like hippie stickers of like flowers and stuff that you put on them. I could have sworn I had a G2 Beachcomber, which came in a chromed green, but I might be wrong about that because I know I have a third-party MP Beachcomber in a chromed green, but he is not sure where he is. I know that he's not fully transformed because he is a pain in the ass. This is why I don't collect Transformers anymore, at least Masterpiece and third party like I was. Too damn hard to transform. You saw Harrison.
And then you break him.
You saw Harrison do his. You saw Rob. Easy. And my list is largely based on G1. And my G1 number 5 is easy to transform. And it's a toy that we talked about briefly earlier. And I will show you. This ad actually works for 2 of my picks. So I'm kind of doing a spoilery thing here. But my number 5 is G1 Shockwave.
Tired of losing battle after battle in the sky, the Autobots create the ultimate robot jet, Jetfire.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye.
But the evil Decepticons have a secret new weapon, Shockwave.
The Transformers, robots in disguise.
Shockwave will stop him!
The Transformers
From Hasbro.
So spoiler alert, as I mentioned, maybe another one of those toys is going to be popping up later.
Skylinks would like to have a word with Jetfire.
Shockwave, as I mentioned earlier, came from a rival toy line, and I can't remember which one, and I closed that window. So it was whatever I said it was at the beginning of the show.
All right.
Would have been...
Guys, just quickly, I'm going to go feed the cat. I'll be right back.
Sounds good, man. Shockwave, as you saw, was a battery-powered toy, so it had light and sound effects, and it had a switch on the back that you could alternate between 2 different light sound effect flashes. Galvatron, of course, had 3.
Galvatron, yeah. I love Emgo did a retro review of Galvatron, and he's just, he's got the gun right. He's like, hey, remember this? And he presses the button and holds it up to the speaker. Does the annoying...
They were terrible sounds. You never wanted to actually use it for that reason. It's like you're playing downstairs, you're going to bug mom and dad upstairs, The light effect was great, but anyway. The cool thing about Shockwave was his articulation. His arms unfolded with elbows, with nice shoulder joints. You could do all kinds of poses with him.
Galvatron had a lot
Actually,
of
the shoulder joints
too.
didn't. Yeah, he did. Actually, now that I think about it, the shoulder joints didn't move forward, but his elbows did, so he could at least aim his gun, which he had a gun arm. He had a fist and a gun arm.
And then he turned into a gun.
And then he turned into a gun. He had knee articulation, pretty decent leg movement. He was a great looking figure, dark purple. And
purple works really well for Transformers. Galvatron, Shockwave, Shattered Glass Optimus looks really good.
Purple, yeah.
And
Shockwave's role as a character was supposedly he was like the sub commander under Megatron, but I do believe that. Okay, hey, Eric.
Yeah, I believe Megatron left Shockwave to rule over Cybertron when they went to Earth.
In the comic books, it's a similar story. He left Shockwave behind when he invaded the Earth, but then Shockwave came to rescue everybody. 2 different scenarios. I prefer the comic book scenario myself. But we're talking about the toy here. What a good toy. Big one. As you could see in that shot there, it kind of matched Jetfire for size. So they were probably the 2 biggest toys at that time because Omega Supreme had not come out yet. And size really did matter at that time to kids. The bigger, the tougher, the stronger.
So did tech specs as well, which is why they were obscured in red, so you couldn't tell if you were getting one that's not as good.
Although you could tell.
You'd have to use the red decoder, but you wouldn't tell until after you'd bought it, because that's the thing.
No kid, you could tell. It was obvious.
Theory.
Like you could, not in theory. I never use my tech spec decoder. I can always read it. Maybe I have supervision. I don't know.
But I love no kid wants a toy that's anything less than perfect. So all the tech specs would creep up and up and up.
And Bumblebee was solid 2s across the board. In the comic books, as you said, Shockwave was left behind on Cybertron. But in issue 4, after Optimus Prime finally defeats the Decepticons on Earth, in comes Shockwave and he blows them all away. I was absolutely devastated by this turn of events as a kid. It's the last thing I wanted. The Autobots' last stand. They finally beat the Decepticons in issue number 4. Number 4 of a 4-issue limited series, by the way. Which immediately continued on with issue 5. And you see that? You see that caption? The Transformers are all dead. Shockwave shows up at the end of issue 4, blows everybody away, and I will show you this panel here.
It wasn't unusual for Transformers on their debut episode to go and wreck whoever the previous big guy was, basically.
Right. Because you had to sell more toys.
Yes.
But
that reminds
Shockwave
me
single-handedly defeated all the Autobots, and there are their corpses hanging from the ceiling as he walks by. So here I am as a kid. Again, same problem. What am I going to do with all these fucking obsolete Autobots?
Speaking of to sell toys, I love how the Soundwave G1 toy is packaged with Buzzsaw, but the cartoon always used Laserbeak, who was sold separately. So if you wanted the duo, you'd have to buy both of them.
Yeah, clever. And I also just want to point out this amazing cover art. Oh, look at that. Let's do a close-up. So that's my number 5. Shockwave will give you a good look at issue number 5 of the Marvel series. Man, was I pissed off at him. Killed all my toys. Harrison, we're back to you for your number 4.
All right, so a little bit of history between Cybertron and my next entry. So, the final one, part of this large chunk of Japanese imported Transformers, comes in 2006 with Kiss Player, and the less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
Let me just say that it's not the band. I know they were into merching everything, but it's not the band.
There's a fellow on YouTube that I follow. I cannot remember his damn name right now, but he just did an excellent episode on Kiss Players, and not for kids.
It is the lowest of the lowest of the lowest of the brands.
Yeah.
And it will and always will be the lowest of the brand.
Can't sink lower.
Yeah. But then in 2006, we got Classics. This was a filler line because the 07 movie got delayed to 07, and they needed something to bridge the gap between Cybertron and the 07 movie. So with Classics, it was usually it was sort of like the precursor to the modern generations. They did modernized takes on G1 characters.
Yes, they did.
So for example, Optimus Prime is a nondescript red and blue truck. Starscream is his G1 F-15, but with an F-14 nose cone. Now, I think you have classic Starscream, and I think you have classic Ghost Starscream.
Dude, I have about 20 of the classic Seekers. I collect the classic Seekers. Yeah. I have as many of them as you can get.
This isn't the last time that classic Seekers will get mentioned. And Classics Megatron was a Nerf gun.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this was the last time we got a gun Megatron, because this Nerf gun Megatron really didn't sell well from what I heard, and it was like more trouble than it was worth to do a gun Megatron. But it was Megatron as a gun again for the first time in a while.
And it's not the last time. Obviously Masterpiece.
Obviously the Masterpieces.
But there was a mini-sized Megatron that I have in storage, and he actually turns into an excellent gun mode.
Oh yeah, the story with that is it was so much hassle to get that approved that they basically said no more gun Megatron after that.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. It's absolutely ridiculous to think it could hurt anybody because it's that big, and even that comes with the orange barrel plug.
But you do have miniature guns now, and I think they're more concerned with you being able to fake having a real gun than hurting someone with it.
You can hurt somebody by throwing it at them.
Yes, you could shove it down their throat, I guess.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get to my list entry now. I was really, really huge into Star Wars at the time.
Yeah.
And I also like Transformers, so my parents were like, we buy both at the same time. So I got a lot of Star Wars Transformers. A lot of them were kibble-heavy messes. Like, I have 2 Obi-Wan Kenobi, or any of the Jedi Starfighter mold, actually. The Eta 2 Actus, basically, you know how it's got the wings and the forward-facing wings, and
yes,
all of that just folded around to the back, and the rest of the figure was there. But there are some good ones, like TIE Advanced Vader is really good because the TIE Advanced body becomes Vader. Then you put one of the wings as a cape and the other wing is a shield. Yep. So the actual Vader figure is really well articulated and it's not an overburdened kibble mess.
Agreed.
But the one that I've gone for It's not the biggest Transformer that was ever. No, not Django. That's an honorable mention.
Oh,
That was. Yeah. It's not the biggest Transformer ever, but it's the biggest Transformer I own, and it is the Supreme Class Death Star Darth Vader.
I used to have him.
Yeah, he's a bit busted up. He doesn't have. He's missing all his accessories other than the gun, because I was a kid and I did a number on a lot of my Transformers. But yeah, he's the biggest I own. He
came with 3 stormtroopers, 1 miniature Vader, a lightsaber, a gun, a cape, and I think 3 TIE fighters.
Yeah, and the cape. I don't have the cape either. Yeah, 3 TIE fighters. This bit keeps opening because it's loose. But yeah,
it is actually a really good figure. Very posable, very solid, and not that hard to put into Death Star mode.
It's got a ton of sounds as well.
Right.
The actual Darth Vader voice. I don't actually mind these kibble bits here, but when you look at the back, as with all spherical Transformers, he's an absolute mess of folded up panels coming off the robot mode. Because
if I'd seen that from behind, I would have said that was Unicron.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Energon Unicron was an absolute mess. Even HasLab Unicron has folded up panels on him.
They're basically all the same. The legs fold in like this.
Yeah.
The arms kind of tuck in, and then panels fold around.
Yep. But yeah, I like this guy because he's the biggest I own, so he commands a presence on my shelf. And
I like that figure.
And he, talks.
That's a nice figure. I owned him, and I agree with your pick. That's a nice figure. I regret getting rid of some.
Yeah, he actually balances really quite well. Like, he's just standing there on his own there.
You know something else I like about him?
Top and back heavy.
Something else that's nice about him is when he's in Death Star mode, 4 little landing feet come out, so you can actually put him on a flat surface.
Yes, they're in the back here. You can. Yeah, that's just one of them. Yeah.
Nice figure.
Yeah, that's Big Vader.
Good one, Harrison. Like
it. Big compared to mine.
Superior to the second one they did, which was a quad former between Vader, Anakin, Imperial Star Destroyer, and Venator Republic Destroyer. That was a disastrous figure. Mm. Okay, Rob. I hope your number 4 is planet sized. Well, more like a small moon.
It's probably it's the bigger of the Transformers that I have. Ooh. Now, this was from the era that 86. So this comes from the movies,
right?
And again, I wanted to get something that my cousin didn't have, and you'll hear that a lot tonight. It was something that my cousin didn't have, something that I wanted. And one of my favorite characters, because he had a great voice, and I can't remember who did the voice, and that's Cyclonus.
Ooh, Roger C. Carmel.
Boy,
yes.
I was talking to Harrison about that,
and it's still in pretty decent condition. The only thing that's missing is his gun. I don't know where his gun got to, but I like his transformation. I like the fact that he had that he has a
landing gear.
A landing gear that I didn't discover until many years later. Why is he always got his nose on the ground? Well, there's a reason for that. Because he has actually landing gear. Hmm. But yeah, this was my favorite character. He was very well articulated. I was, and like I said, not a cone head like the previous jets.
No,
and and of course I was really into the sweep, no pun intended, wing design of Cyclonus, and he was kind of the underling at that time to Megatron or to Galvatron.
Mm.
And so he was the leader of my Decepticons. And
that's a really nice figure. There it is.
Yeah. It looks a little janky now, but at the time, the shoulders come up and
yeah.
And that sort of thing. So yeah, looking a little janky now, but at the time in 86, this was like a very well articulated figure. And a really cool gun that I wish I still had.
Yeah,
there you go.
My number
4. Yes.
I love the G1 Galvatron trio. I have them back up there, the modern tapes on them.
I'm really glad you had that, Rob, because I was literally talking to Harrison this week about what a sleek jet that is.
Yeah.
And it was
And the voice was Roger C. Carmel. He died in 1986, I believe.
It was considered a Decepticon jet, the same price point and packaging as Starscream.
Yeah.
And that was the last year that Starscream was issued because... All right. Before I go...
Starscream stuck around actually for a while.
Yeah, he did. He spoilers.
He ghost of.
Yeah.
His toys stuck around on shelves actually for longer than most. I think he was 4 years.
3.
Yeah.
3.
Well,
yeah, 3. I'm gonna take a break to do a quick gen check. So I'm gonna run a song.
All right.
Harrison thought that "Water from the Hose" by T-Bone would be perfect for tonight because it's a
played
childhood theme song.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's rock "Water from the Hose" by T-Bone Erickson. I'm going to do a quick gen check, and we'll be back with my number 4. See you in a bit.
Cool.
Back in the station wagon, no seatbelts and away we go. Second-hand smoke filling up the cabin. Daddy's drinking, but he's driving slow. Hitchhiking and we're in luck, riding in the bed of a pickup truck. From this childhood we all grew up. This used to be our reality. Slow right down so you can see the way the world once used to be. How we survived nobody knows. Drinking water from the hose. Play it outside beyond the yard. In the streets amongst the cars. All sunburned with a bloody nose. Drinking water from the hose. On the roundabout down at the playground. Get it spinning fast and then you climb. Running home faster than a greyhound. Dinner's cold and Mom said be on time. Shaking like a Polaroid. I'm so late and she's annoyed. When Dad gets home, discipline's deployed. Freedom with accountability. Slow right down so you can see the way the world once used to be. How we survived, nobody knows. Drinking water from the hose. Play it outside beyond the yard. In the streets amongst the cars. All sunburned with a bloody nose. Drinking water from the hose. All over the halls, asbestos behind the walls, chicken pox and a running nose, drinking water from the hose, vaccine scars like tennis balls, boys had guns and girls had dolls, life was good, the story goes, drinking water from the hose, slow right down so you can see the way the world once used to be, how we survived nobody knows. Drinking water from the hose. Play it outside beyond the yard. In the streets amongst the cars.
So it looks like Facebook has given us a copyright strike for the ads. I've had to.
Wow.
I don't know what I did. I had to remove some content. So it's up on YouTube. That was Water from the Hose by T-Bone Erickson. And my number 4 is going to give me a copyright strike because I'm going to show you the ad. This is actually, you know what? I'm going to tell you the story before I show you the ad. 1987 was my last year for Transformers. It was the year they introduced the Headmasters. And I, like I said earlier, liked the concept of the Headmasters. They had pilots again. They had opening cockpits again. A lot of clear plastic for that. Really liked it. And there was one toy that I really, really, really wanted. And around this time, my parents were looking at buying a new house. And I was upset because this would have been moving away from my best friend, Bob. And my mom's like, well, you know, we'll still be biking distance from Bob. And I had this terrible feeling that I wasn't going to see him as much anymore, which probably would have been true. I kicked up such a fuss that my parents never moved. They still own the same house that we always owned because of me. But the compromise was gonna be, if we moved, my parents were gonna let me have a toy room / music room for me to play my guitar in, and they were gonna buy me this guy.
It's Fortress Maximus,
Fortress Maximus!
the colossal headmaster Autobot City.
Look!
The Terrorcons are attacking! Transform Fortress Maximus!
Master Transformers!
From city to battle station!
For much more than meets the eye!
Terrorcons form above us and destroy Fortress Maximus!
But Fortress Maximus transforms again, this time into a robot so humongous a separate robot becomes its head.
Its power's awesome!
Transformers!
From Hasbro.
I wanted Fortress Maximus so bad. He was too.
That was Rodimus Prime's voice, I think, at one point in the that ad.
Not sure.
Either Rodimus or Magnus.
I was thinking it was Magnus because that thing. How'd they get Robert Stack for that?
Right.
No, I think it was Cartoon Magnus. It was one of them.
It was one of them. Yeah. Needless to say, I never got Fort Max because we never moved. But in 2013, they did an encore reissue of Fort Max. He went for $400, which was a lot less than the $4,000 or so that you would have to drop for a mint complete Fort Max these days.
Wow.
I was more than happy to get the encore reissue. He is pretty much identical to the original. Comes with so many parts. He's a triple headmaster, basically, or I guess a double headmaster. 3 robots. Little tiny robot turns into the head of Cerebros, who transforms into the head of Fortress Maximus.
Black Zarek is similar. Sorry,
Black
Zarek.
Zarek was a single headmaster.
Yeah. But,
with a big helmet.
Zarek had Robot, then he had Zarek, and Zarek himself was a headmaster.
Only in the new 2020 Scorponok toy. The original Scorponok toy was a single headmaster.
Sure
you must trust me on this, Harrison.
Okay. I'm pretty sure in the cartoon he was a double.
I can't speak to that cartoon. That's the one that Rob was talking about earlier. That was a truncated 3 episodes.
Yes, season 4.
So yeah, needless to say, the headmasters did not have nearly the impact.
I'll take my
Transformers had peaked and they were declining in sales and popularity. But as far as I was concerned, the toys were still great. I'm really happy to have a Fortress Maximus today. He is my pride and joy. I actually made an animated Transformers movie starring Fortress Maximus that I've never edited together, and I would really like to complete it one day. Really nice figure. Lots, again, clear parts that I like. Tons of guns. Oh my God. He had like 2 double cannons that came out of his kneecaps. He had 2 gigantic cannons that came out of his side. He had hand cannons, 2 double hand cannons that came out of his fists, and another double cannon that came out of one arm. He was loaded. And he had 2 handguns. Like, just loaded with firepower. He transformed into a city mode and a very, very poor excuse for a battle station mode. But basically, he was one of these city bots that basically lies down on his back and you spread out all of his limbs in different directions. That's basically all there was to him. But I love him. In the Marvel comics, he was briefly the leader of the Autobots during a period where Optimus Prime was still dead, and Grimlock.
He was also leader in the Japanese-only The Headmasters TV show, I believe, because they killed off Optimus and like Rodimus and like Magnus and like everyone.
Right. Okay.
And
Makes
Blaster
sense.
and Soundwave got upgraded into Twincast and Sound Blaster.
In the Marvel comics, it was Grimlock who replaced Optimus Prime as leader of the Autobots.
Oh dear.
His leadership was violent and anti-human
Primus
and
helped
disastrous. No, he wasn't the dunce that he was in the comics. He talked weird like that, but he wasn't stupid. He was actually quite a, well, I mean, he wasn't a great leader, but anyway, Fortress Maximus kind of took over leadership until they brought back the real Optimus Prime. And interestingly enough, the head of Fortress Maximus is a character called Spike, who, as you know, in the Sunbow animated series was Spike Witwicky, the original teenage kid from the original series. Now he's been upgraded to Headmaster, this towering robot, Fortress Maximus. But in the Marvel comics, there was no such character as Spike. In the Marvel comics, it was Sparkplug and Buster Witwicky, and it had been Buster ever since issue number 1. So they had to invent a new character who was Buster's older brother, Spike, who had been away at college during the events of the entire 4 years, the original 4 years. He never called to check up on dear old dad or his brother, even though in the series, so much had happened to the Witwicky family, like their entire fucking garage got blown up by the Decepticons at one point, basically. So like this brother, he just appears out of nowhere. Hey, Dad, I'm home. Oh, good. The Decepticons captured your younger brother, and you got to do something about it. So he binary bonds with Fortress Maximus, and the rest is history. He actually becomes quite a tragic character later on. There was a series that came out in the last 10 years called Regeneration 1, which continues the original G1 series from its abrupt cancellation in 1991. And Spike at this point is well, let's just say he's got some guilt. He's basically blaming himself for the entire destruction of the Earth at the hands of Megatron. And he's a broken shell of a man. Wow. Not a happy ending for Spike.
I think in one of the comics, one of these Witwickies gets killed in a shuttle crash too.
Not in the Marvels. I won't carry on with the Regeneration one because that's an entire, I could go on for 3 hours. So I'll stop myself here. Fortress Maximus, my number 4. I'm so glad I have him today. Harrison, take us to number 3.
I personally never liked the Headmasters because a Transformer without a head is crippled if you remove their head from them. If the head can't get to them, if the head gets captured or something, suddenly they're crippled. I've always thought Target Masters were better so that when you're not fighting, you can have a little helper to do repairs or get in places for you.
I get you. All I can say is that in Japan, the concept of like little robots combining or becoming parts of larger robots is it's an ingrained tradition. And that's basically what Headmasters is. And
I personally thought that Japan never really meshed well with the Transformers concept.
What an odd statement.
You have Headmasters, which I personally don't like. You have KISS players. You have the Unicron trilogy as well became basically giant superpowered robots smacking up against each other in Cybertron. It was I just don't think their style suits the Transformers.
You may be right. Anyway, go ahead. What's your number 3?
Okay, so a very little bit of history now. We hit the movie line in 2007 after Star Wars. So Star Wars continued, but the movie line also started in 2007. Now, just quickly, I'm going to say that big chunk, basically from Beast Wars to 2007, that 20-year period, a lot of people like to say that, oh yeah, Peter Cullen, he is Optimus Prime. He's the voice of Optimus Prime. Nobody else can voice him. But for that 20-year period, most Optimus Primes and Megatrons were David Kay and Gary Chalk.
True, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yes, movie line, 2007. And in a stark contrast to Cybertron, where basically the models were scanned from the toy, the complicated movie designs did not translate well to toys in terms of engineering or deco. So we took a major step back to almost G1 levels of clunkiness and inaccuracy. And the movie line also, as every Transformers line is to do, they borrow molds from lines from the previous line. So the 07 movie line saw a lot of Cybertron molds redecoed and reused. This is Cybertron Jetfire redecoed into Jetstorm, who was originally a Beast Wars character. Look at that head sculpt. That's a really cool head sculpt.
I like it.
Very cool.
So
I like how he's got little rocket launchers coming out of his hips there.
They spring load out when you plug the nose down. Massive kibble mess, but
that is messy.
Yeah, but I like how the wings become these huge shoulder pauldrons for him.
Yeah, I like features like that.
But that's not the entry. So I think it's safe to say that the movie line had a profound impact on the brand, shooting it into the stratosphere, basically, of popularity. They hitting previously never done heights. And so, of course, a sequel was inevitable, Revenge of the Fallen in 2009. You had the Revenge of the Fallen toy line. And the Revenge of the Fallen toy line is widely considered to be the apex of Transformers toys in both engineering and deco. They were incredibly complex to the point that they received complaints about it and they had to scale it back for the next line, Dark of the Moon.
Big mistake. Those were shitty toys, Dark of the Moon.
We'll get to Dark of the Moon. Because my entry is from Revenge of the Fallen. And actually, the two Revenge of the Fallen deluxe class figures that I own, I think they're better than their Studio Series counterparts. And one of them is a Voyager.
Ah, okay.
So my entry is deluxe class Rampage.
Yeah.
Now, he's not animation accurate because for one, Rampage was red in the movie. This is actually, but I love the Centaur design. They take his back, they take his bucket or his whatever you call that thing on the thing, and they turn it into an extra set of legs. And centaurs, you really don't get a centaur design in Transformers. Anyways, it's really unique and abstract. And I think it looks really cool.
It does.
And you can bring his legs together as well. He's technically a triple changer. You've got Centaur mode, you've got vehicle mode, and you have Jackhammer mode. You can
in the movie he was kind of like a pogo mode, right?
Yeah, you can do that jackhammer mode here. You plug and you fold up this.
Right, yeah.
Make a big
I call it
kibble
pogo
backpack.
mode.
Yeah, and it does have, when you attach this to that and you get it right, these pistons do move up and down with the pogoing.
Oh, cool.
But and I love these treads as well. They're not like incredibly articulated, but they're like these whips and they're long and they're rubbery material, so they flop around more realistically. The Voyager Studio Series Rampage, his treads are much shorter and much thicker, and they don't look as good. But
he combines to the Devastator, and this one doesn't.
Yeah, true. This one doesn't combine into Devastator. Their Devastator, the very first Devastator, was made from. They were vehicle to combine mode only, and it was very crude.
Yeah.
And then they had like a very small Legends class version. We didn't get a proper triple changing Constructicons till Studio Series in 2019. But we'll get to that with another entry.
We'll get there.
So yes, that is my number 3 entry, Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Rampage.
And over to Rob.
Okay. Gimli, I'm going to need you to move. So Ravage, eject.
Ravage, eject.
Anyway. Okay, you can stay. All right. This one has a bit of a story to it because I think this is the very first one I actually really, really worked hard to get. And I remember going to Sears. And if you're not familiar, I know Harrison will not be familiar with Sears. You might be.
Nope.
So it's a department store.
Don't have that over here.
And so it's gone now. But the thing is that they were selling toys at that time. And this was just after they had released this is just after the first viewing of Devastator. And they had just released the toys. And I went there just before took the bus, telling you how long ago it was, took the bus to go there and to get one of the figures. And I looked at all of them, and I stood there for the longest time to decide who I was going to get. And again, my criteria has to have a good head, has to have arms that work well, and has to have, in my opinion, a good solid figure. And unfortunately, his feet are not coming out, but this is G1 Bone Crusher.
One of the best.
Out of the line. I was, and he did come with a fist and a rocket launcher, unfortunately, and a gun, but those unfortunately got lost to time. But this is the G1 Bone Crusher, and is probably one of my favorites of the Constructicons and of the Combiner series. I did buy future Combiners, as you saw with the Aeriobot. I can't remember his name. Skydive, and there was another one which I can't reach, but it's one of the Stunticons, the Lamborghini. And then I also got one of the Swindle, the Combaticons.
Yeah.
So, but this is my favorite of the Combiners. It's Bone Crusher, my number 3. One of my favorites.
Of the original Constructicons, Bone Crusher is my favorite of the original 6.
Yep.
He's really nice with all of his accessories.
Yep.
He's got, as Rob mentioned, he's got that rocket launcher that attaches, and if you transform him into robot mode, the rocket launcher can still attach to his arm, which is a nice touch.
Yep.
Great figure. My number 3 is a figure that I do not have to show, and I've already shown the ad for G1 Jetfire, which, as we talked about, is based on a Macross figure. He came with a boatload of accessories. He came with a gun. He came with an attachment to basically clip the gun into his jet mode. He came with arm armor. He came with leg armor. He came with a backpack and 2 gigantic rockets. And the nice thing is the figure was totally workable without all of this armor and with all of this armor. Without, it had a nice little double tail fin that flipped out. With, he had those gigantic booster rockets, and I guess the idea was that boosts him into orbit. And he was the first Autobot jet, soon to be followed by Power Glide, little mini A10. But Jetfire was a gorgeous toy. He was huge. He had a ton of die cast. I got him at the Highway Market. He had 3 spring-loaded flip-out landing gear. He had a head that had 4 cannons on the side, and it turned into an undercarriage turret in jet mode. Really a brilliant figure. A little on the fragile side. The armor clips are broken on a lot of my armor pieces. It'll never be reissued, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, have you seen the Siege Commander class Jetfire? From 2019.
I don't know what that is. That the official?
Big Jetfire.
But that's Skyfire.
Lots of guns.
That's not Jetfire. That's Skyfire.
Well, it's both. You can give him a mask that puts him to Skyfire.
The jet mode is not Jetfire. Jetfire is what Jetfire is. He doesn't have the big clunky Una booster on the back. He has 2 distinct boosters. He has the swing wings. I have a Skyfire.
This one has those wings.
I have a fan toy Skyfire out there, and he's beautiful. He's a huge jet, but he's not Jetfire. That's two different figures. And you'll notice in that ad, the ad that I ran earlier, that was, I think, the only time you see the Macross Jetfire animated, because when he came out in the cartoon, he was different. I have the comic here. In the comic storyline, Jetfire, like the cartoon version, started as a Decepticon, but different origin. He wasn't from Cybertron. He was built on Earth by Shockwave, and then recruited basically by the Autobots. But that's Skyfire, completely different from the Jetfire toy. And I remember that always caused a lot of confusion, a lot of debate, and a lot of arguments among us kids. Kind of like the Rumble Frenzy. Which one's blue?
Yeah.
Hey, Frankie Toms, how are you doing tonight? Yes, I have that character.
That's
He's
a
at
cool
the cottage.
One.
Yeah.
I don't have him, but he's cool.
Yeah, I have him.
I have a very quick story about Skyfire. I actually had to babysit the Skyfire toy that Andrew bought because Andrew Chernko,
yeah.
He was afraid that his mother was going to gripe at him for spending that much money on a toy.
He was like $40.
So he gave it to me to take care of, and he very slowly introduced it to his mom over time.
Smart kid.
I had the full Skyfire for the longest time. Now, I remember actually having to race home when I found out that my cousins from Ottawa were coming, and they were notorious for breaking stuff. So I had to race home to stop them from touching Skyfire because he wasn't mine, and if I broke him, I'd be paying for him.
Yeah.
So that's my brief story of Skyfire, and the one time I actually tried to explain the difference between Jetfire and Skyfire. Some woman in a store asking, "Well, why is his name Jetfire? I'm looking for Skyfire." I'm looking for Jetfire, not Skyfire. And I had to explain to her that it's the same jet. They just look different. And she looked at me kind of strange and went, "Okay, I'll still buy it for my kid, but I'll take your word for it," kind of thing. Yeah. So
I just had a thought, a memory, and I won't bother digging up the comic book, but the animation model of that Macross Jetfire does appear by accident in the Marvel comic as a background character in crowd scenes, because they were constantly making errors like that in the Marvel comics. They're notorious. Okay, Harrison, over to you with your number 2.
All right, the history is going to get a little sparser now. I'm not going to be as thorough because there's a lot. I'm only going to touch the important bits.
Yeah.
So, after Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, 2011, toy line, yes, simpler, much simpler, with a big focus on gimmicks.
They changed the scale too.
Yeah, mech tech, oversized weapons that would plug on to characters with like moving bits as well. Yeah, but also, although a neat thing, I say neat, it's not. Basically, in Revenge of the Fallen toy line, you started Human Alliance, which was these Transformers figures that would transform into cars with enough room for a little human action figure from the movies to put in them. And Human Alliance continued into Dark of the Moon. I think that was like a neat thing, sort of like the old G1, sort of like alternators, like bringing it back to that more realistic car look.
I agree.
But whereas Revenge of the Fallen was at basically the peak of toy buying, Dark of the Moon there was a big slowdown. If you remember Skylanders and that sort of Toys to Life thing where they interacted with video games, that released 2011. That pretty much sunk. Dark of the Moon, there was a lot of cancelled figures for that line that are really hard to get, or they were only released like in the Asian region. Then in 2013, you got your first taste of what the modern generation's take is like with Thrilling 30,
right?
Where they went back and basically updated takes of characters. There was Thrilling 30 Metroplex. I know that was a big deal. That goes for a crap ton of money nowadays on eBay. You don't want to know.
I've got
one. You've got that. And some of the Beast Wars characters are like Rhinox, Waspinator, and Rat Traps or Thrilling 30 figures. They basically drew from all over the Transformers universe. And then in 2015 through to 2018, you had the Prime Wars trilogy, which was a big focus on G1 characters only.
Yeah.
And let's just say that Prime Wars is considered a low point both fictionally and for the toy line.
No, wrong.
It's widely considered to be pretty crap, especially the fiction.
Fiction, yeah.
And
the toys are great.
Compared to the toys nowadays, no, they're awful.
See, I made the mistake of buying all the characters I wanted during Prime Wars, I didn't
Well,
wait long
actually,
enough.
there's a big difference between nowadays and Prime Wars in that nowadays is focused on animation accuracy, and Prime Wars was still, okay, how can we stylize this a bit more rather than slavishly being accurate? So they do have in terms of their appearance, they have their appeal in that regard, but engineering-wise, yuck. Anyway, with 2018, with the 10th anniversary of the live-action films starting, you got the Studio Series, which was focused on, it was a line which focused solely on movie characters and was about giving them, the most accurate look possible with the best engineering. And so I'm going to talk a bit about my experience. I checked out of Transformers after I basically got too old, after Revenge of the Fallen. These Revenge of the Fallen figures were the last figures I got for a while. And then in 2019, by this point I discovered LeBrain's site. There was Transformers on his site. And, it just flew into my head. I was thinking of Dark of the Moon, and there's that line when Ironhide smacks the sulking Optimus Prime on the roof and says, "Prime, make something of yourself." And I was like, yeah, I like that. I like Ironhide. I want to rewatch that. But I'm like, but I can't start with Dark of the Moon. I have to start with the first movie. So I watched all the Bayverse movies in order, and that's what got me back into Transformers. It was Revenge of the Fallen specifically. I was watching the forest fight and I saw this full body shot of Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. I'm like, oh, I love that design. I need to get a figure of that design. So I bought Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Megatron shortly after.
Oh, nice. So is that the tank Megatron?
Yeah, that's Tank, right? He had the crab claw arm.
Yeah.
The original figure for this was pretty atrocious. He had like this incredibly spindly arm. He was like green. And this one's really animation accurate compared to that. But this was number 13. We're up to like in the 70s or 80s now. And back then, I guess the success of the line, because the line was a huge success, but the success of the line wasn't as, they couldn't be as confident. So this guy, as you can see, he's just this dull gray plastic. But when they got around to movie 1 Megatron, they slathered him in silver paint. So when this guy was the only figure on my shelf, he looked good. But now when he's on my shelf compared to Studio Series Shockwave and all the other figures I got, he sticks out like a sore thumb because he's so dull colored. And have you heard about Takara Tomi's premium finish line?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Well, basically what the premium finish is, for anyone who doesn't know, is they take existing molds and they give them a really upmarket, they cover them in paint, so to speak, and then they charge a huge premium for them. Now, this line has been a complete dud. Half of them is from the War for Cybertron thing, and their idea of a premium finish is just some battle damage. Not even like lots of battle damage sometimes. Bumblebee Movie Prime, it's just a bit here, a bit there, silver instead of white. And like I said, Movie 1 Studio Series Megatron slathered in silver paint. And so when it came time to do a premium finish Studio Series Megatron, they basically got this already silver Movie 1 Megatron, and they're like, let's make his silver slightly less silver, slightly duller, instead of looking at this thing in dire need of silver paint. Like, nope, don't need to premium finish this. Gray plastic is the premium finish. Or that reminds me, the Ultra Magnus as well has a lot of gray plastic, their premium finish. Anything white is gray. So apparently they think gray plastic is a premium finish. But yeah, that's my rant about Takara Tomy done. And that was my second entry, the Studio Series Voyager ROTF Megatron.
Nice.
The first figure I bought when I was getting back into Transformers.
Nice. All right, Rob, what's your number 2?
All right, my number 2. I'm going to need both arms for this, Gimli, so I'm going to put you down.
Ooh.
Okay. No, it's nothing like that. This was the very first Transformer that I ever got. He was a favorite character. I absolutely loved the design. I have a bit of love for the vehicle, but I have to say that my very first Transformer is G1 Bumblebee. He's a little bit beat up. However, I recently picked up
there it is.
The more screen accurate, because the one thing that I didn't like was the fact that the face was different.
Yeah.
And it's a bit dusty, but the face is now closer to screen accurate.
Yeah.
So there you are. That's my number 2. This was, again, one of the very few figures that both my cousin and I had. And I really liked Cliff Jumper, but they were basically the same design.
Yes.
But I liked Bumblebee that little bit more because, well, I liked the character.
Now, interestingly enough, I'm glad that you have your Bumblebee out. At the very start, we were talking about how it was a part of the Microman line. Those were supposed to be a toy called a penny racer, where you actually took an actual coin and stuck it in the back, which is why he has that weird back flap. That's where the penny would go.
Yeah.
What was the function of the penny?
I think it made it do like a wheelie, like pop a wheelie.
Yeah, they used to have McDonald's toys that did the same thing. You pull back on the thing, you put a penny or something, a weight in the back, and it would do the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, a little extra note on that. When I got Brawn, they introduced these little characters, and there was one commercial for it, and I've never seen the commercial since. But it's this little Jeep.
The mini spies.
Yes. And Andrew told me about, and it's got the I don't know, do you call it clockwork over in Australia? You pull it back and it zooms forward.
I think we just call that motorized.
Yeah.
Not like battery motorized, but pull back.
Pull back.
Yeah, pull back and away it goes. But there's
those are annoying because if I wanted to arrange it in a specific place and I overshot it and I couldn't just reverse it. I had to literally pick it up and then move it and try again.
Yeah.
So go
ahead.
I was going to say I have a pullback motor story, which is my 1987 Gold Bug toy, which was a Bumblebee. It was Bumblebee reissued.
Yeah.
And he had a pullback motor. And I was telling you earlier about that Fortress Maximus movie that I had filmed. And there's a shot in it where I was like, I got my camera and I had my Gold Bug and I had him launch towards the camera right off of the porch at the cottage into the brush. And damn, it took me about an hour to find him.
See, I hated those later designs because all they were just flip up, push the thing in, pop down the boot, as Harrison calls it, and that's it.
Those were the throttle bots.
Oh,
you want to throttle the designer.
And they had no arm articulation. They had no articulation.
Exactly, no articulation whatsoever.
But the arms were stiff down, which was a cardinal sin in my world. I didn't like that kind of figure.
And that's I still have him, but he's somewhere that I don't want to go and get him.
No problem. My number 2, we're at number 2, is a figure I have right here next to me.
What's that?
And it's the only non-G1 figure on my list, and it's MP10, Optimus Prime. This is the masterpiece Optimus Prime, and I think the best Optimus Prime toy that's ever been made. This is a reissue. I think it's Year of the Horse, I think it is. So he's gold and dark red as opposed to silver and red. Transforms essentially the same as our old traditional Optimus Prime. The arms come out of here. The head comes out of here. The legs form out of there. Mm-hmm. He has a full trailer.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on the on Optimus Prime without the trailer.
Right. You got to have a trailer. Otherwise, it's not Optimus. And just like the original, the sides unfold. I won't bother doing it.
Yeah.
Unfold into base mode. There's a roller car in there. There's the, whatever you want to call it, the headpiece of the Staff of Ra or whatever, with the 2 missiles.
Oh.
It has an opening canopy so that you can put in a little, I can see that I have a little figure in there right now because I bought these third-party Spike and Sparkplug figures a long time ago. And I can see that there's one of them sitting in the cockpit of the, whatever that thing is, the armed missile launcher thing.
Yeah.
These trailers are really nice. On the masterpiece figures, as you can see, you can use these legs here to keep them propped up while your Optimus is out fighting other battles.
Right.
You can fit another Autobot car in there, just like the original. In fact, the Autobot cars are specifically designed to be able to fit in there. If you recall the ambulance character of Ratchet, he has the siren, the light fixture on the top of the ambulance.
Yep.
Well, they designed the Masterpiece Ratchet figure. They designed him that you can push down the little light fixture on the top so that he can still fit into Optimus's trailer right there, which is a really nice touch. Very much appreciated from the fans. Yeah, sorry. Not a lot of room. All right, there you go. You're safe. My number 2, MP Optimus Prime MP10. Brings us into the number 1 round.
Yeah.
Harrison, what do you got?
All right. This is something I forgot to mention during the Max the Axe show because I knew that Haslam would love it. But it was actually Transformers that got me into Max the Axe. Because if you remember, you edited a couple of years back, you put together that movie that you filmed and you soundtracked it to Max the Axe.
I soundtracked it to Max the Axe.
Yeah, 40 minutes of Max the Axe that I was
Dave freaking loved that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but all right, so for my final entry, after the negativity towards the Prime Wars trilogy from the majority of the fan base, Hasbro took this on board, and with their next trilogy, they really upped the ball. They were on the ball. So this is the War for Cybertron trilogy, and with this, they put a newfound emphasis on animation accuracy and scale. Scale was a big one. They really wanted to match that animation scale. So no longer would you get a leader Optimus that was massive and as big as a leader Starscream. Starscream was a Voyager. Optimus was a Voyager-sized bot with a trailer sold as a leader class. And because size classes no longer indicated size as much as they indicated parts count, complexity, paint, and all. And so basically we have now we're getting the definitive versions of so many characters. Now, Siege took the Cybertronian aesthetic with the battle damage, and Earthrise and Kingdom basically now took for this really animation accurate take on G1 characters. For Beast Wars, they went for a realistic animal take. So they're not as animation accurate, but they still look really good.
Yeah.
Now, if you play the final ad, which is just a very short one for Kingdom.
Here it comes.
Unleash the power of the animal kingdom. With new Transformers Kingdom figures, convert from beast to robot mode and rule the battle. 2 epic worlds collide with new Transformers Kingdom figures, each sold separately.
I want one now.
So yes, most of the figures basically I buy now are Studio Series or War for Cybertron and onwards generations because it's just, the best. Yeah. One funny thing, that kid, he didn't even transform Optimus Primal correctly. Optimus Primal is supposed to look like this.
Right.
They just changed the monkey head to the man head.
Yeah, they didn't bother with the details.
No, yeah. But my entry.
Oh, so I was just going to say, and I will say that that's the line that got me back into buying a few Transformers. I cannot buy them like I used to, but I bought a few, and they're good.
Plus the amount of exclusives that go around, you'd have it really cut out for you if you wanted to even try and buy everyone.
Yeah. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So my entry is Earthrise Starscream. This is the figure that got me into buying G1. This basically got me into buying G1 characters, because previously I'd only bought Studio Series, and at the time I was going to buy Studio Series Blitzwing from the Bumblebee movie, who was basically a jet. He was a cream-colored jet with some red and some blue. But then I watched the '86 movie the second time. I stumbled across this Earthrise Starscream, and I was just like, actually, I want this. And then I never bought Blitzwing because I was like, why do I don't need 2 cream-colored jets. That was admirable restraint for a Transformers collector. And so then basically this figure was so good, I've bought Soundwave, I've bought the Generation Selects Deep cover, I've bought the Galvatron trio, Ultra Magnus, Rodimus. Wait, Ultra Magnus and Rodimus are down there under my name. Yeah, but yeah, this was the character, and as you can see, it's really quite animation accurate. The only thing is this nose cone kibble hanging out on the back here. But look, leg articulation.
Finally,
the G1 toy didn't have that. But
not.
if I were to transform this on camera, LeBrain would notice a lot, because this is basically an upscaled classic Starscream with extra articulation and a bit of extra engineering.
I actually have the Ramjet. His mold mate Ramjet. I have him.
Earthrise Ramjet.
Yeah.
Oh, then you'd have Earthrise, not Dirge. What's Thrust? Not Thrust.
No, just Ramjet. He's a G2 Ramjet.
Oh. So yeah, this is basically like classic Starscream was that good of a figure that they just took his skeleton and his core, upscaled him, and gave him a better deco and a bit more articulation, and fixed some engineering issues here and there.
Absolutely. And
so
upscaled him enough to make him more.
Yeah. And these new Generations figures are basically mini masterpieces. Like I showed off Cyclone. He's basically a masterpiece, but small. To the point, and the thing that really drives it home is Masterpiece Starscream, the new one here in Australia, $500. This, $50.
Right.
A tenth of the price, and 9 times as good.
And way more
not
fun.
9 times as good. Yeah, a ninth as good. So much more fun to transform. You don't have to worry about breaking it as much. It's just it's now the best time to be a Transformers fan and collector, possibly ever, definitely since Revenge of the Fallen.
That's a great number one, Harrison. I love it. And the fact that I own a version of it makes me happy because I know what you're talking about. All right, Rob, what is your number one? I have a feeling. Well, we'll see. I thought I might know. We'll see.
You will be surprised. Now, I have a quick story about the reissue of Optimus Prime. When I went into, and I was very happy to lay down some money to get a G1 Optimus Prime when they reissued him. But I walk in to Walmart, I see the G1 Optimus Prime. Where's his trailer? Where's the goddamn trailer?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to drop $50 for a character that I have wanted since it first came out to not have the trailer. So I went for the Bumblebee instead and said, I'm calling it a day.
The Beast Wars reissues have the price jacked up too. Rat Trap is a basic class, Cheetah's a deluxe class, but they both cost the same now. And Megatron and Optimus, they're both ultra classes, but the Megatron T-Rex is significantly more expensive than the Optimus.
I think that's ludicrous.
Reissues are kind of poop. Thankfully, the main line are good.
Yeah. Okay, so this was because it's that time of year. We're talking Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the very first Transformer that I got for Christmas, and has been my favorite ever since. He is the one that's survived the most because his torso actually became separated, and I had to reattach it. This is a G1 Mirage, and it is one of my favorite because of the articulation. It's got like full articulation.
Yep.
Bend at the shoulders. It has arm joints. The legs don't move, but I mean that's a part of the figure. For me, this is the one that he actually became a favorite character of mine. And so to have him because completely by chance that I ended up getting the Mirage for Christmas, because my aunt was buying Transformers for myself and for my cousin. She ended up buying Mirage because she thought I'd like race cars, which I do. But a little story on the torso. For years, there was a plastic axle in there, for lack of a better word, that snapped.
Yeah, mine snapped too.
And so the whole thing came apart.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, I need to fix this guy because he's one of my favorite characters. What do I do? So I'm sitting around one day and I look, and there's these screws that my dad had that looked about the same size. And so I went, okay, I'm going to borrow one of those screws, take the head off of it, screw the one end in, and then screw in the top of the body. I did that 20 years ago.
Wow.
It's very loose, but it still works. And it still transforms. And in the end, it is my favorite of, I mean, it has the detail on this. It has the rubber tires, but it has Goodyear printed on the tires. I love that attention to detail. It has, like I said, it has the it's faded off, but it has the numbers on the side. It has the here, I'll put it up close here.
Yeah. I see it.
Very faded, but it has the I only ever saw it once for screen accuracy on the show. It has all of those things on it. I was just enamored with this this setup for the longest time. Again, unlike Hound, whose arms were just these little stumps and basically were just in there, Mirage had fully articulated arms, and I was like, I am so glad I have this one. My number one, G1 Mirage.
Love it. Okay, well, I'm going to take us right back to the very first comment left tonight. Right there. Happy to oblige you, Tim. Happy to oblige you. Here's my reissue Soundwave with 2 cassettes. And why not get him out and transform him? Soundwave was such a great figure. As Harrison pointed out, he was micro cassette size, so he would fit a micro cassette in his chest. Here he is. You could put one of the cassettes. Actually, this is a reissue that's double size, so you could fit 2 cassettes in there.
Oh, I hate when they did Sound Blaster. When they did the modern take on Sound Blaster, they gave him the double chest, and it looks really bad.
Harrison, you're too picky.
Yeah, I am too picky.
Nice die cast feet. They pass the cold touch technique, and they are heavy. Arms pop out, and unlike Starscream, he has fists that come out of his hands like that. Leg articulation, he can kick forward. Arm articulation, he can do that. You can do that. Head swivels. And of course,
show off how his guns become the batteries. Well, his gun and his shoulder cannon.
Oh, shit.
That's a really neat touch.
All right, so yeah, 2 batteries. They actually, in cassette mode, they plug into the back of the cassette mode, so weapon storage.
Oh, I thought you could open up a panel on his back and shove him in there.
That's the Masterpiece figure.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, no, sorry, you're right. No, it's the Masterpiece figure where they just fit onto the back, but you're right. The battery compartment, there it is. You're right. I'm mixing the 2 figures up. Yeah. And then, of course, for God's sakes, you can tell that we need to wind the show up. There's a missile attachment that goes there, a non-firing missile attachment.
Attaches to Ravage, doesn't it?
No.
No, okay. No. Oh, I'm getting ones mixed up. That's the latest Bumblebee movie. Ravage has the attachment on him.
I am going to show you the last ad of the night, which is the original Soundwave ad. And you'll notice, pay really close attention to this ad. I only noticed this yesterday. Soundwave is holding a gun in each hand. And in this hand, he's holding Buzzsaw's jet engine gun. Meanwhile, in the same shot, you can see Buzzsaw flying around fully functional. But have a look at the ad. Here's the original Soundwave.
The Transformers,
more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers, more than meets the eye. The Transformers, robots in disguise.
It's the Decepticon communicators. Get more Autobots.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye.
Transformers from Hasbro.
Yeah.
Get more Autobots. That's not a message of any kind, is it?
And a little bit of Mirage love there, I saw.
Yeah.
I love how he reaches in, he just throws it out. He doesn't eject it. He just grabs and throws laser beam.
Hey man, it's a valid method. Gets a little bit of extra launch there, extra thrust. That's my number one, and I'm happy to oblige Tim with Soundwave as my number one. Gentlemen, I want to forego the runners-up list tonight because I do have some family issues to attend to.
Very well.
We can do that in the comment section tomorrow. Any last words for the evening, boys? I had a blast.
It's been great.
I had a blast.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Facebook took the video and fucked us over, but we kept going.
Yep.
We kept on a rolling.
Yep.
The train kept a rolling.
The train kept a rolling. The brain train keeps a rolling.
You know, it's funny. I'm surprised that you didn't rename this the LeBrain Astro Train, but it was I didn't mention it till now because I figured if you hadn't brought it up by now, I'd bring it up at the end.
Well, you know, I could ask T-Bone to make an entire new theme song, but got to give the guy a break. He's been working pretty hard.
Yeah.
Rob, what's on Visions and Sound tonight?
It is oddly enough kind of related in a sense to Transformers. I'm doing the music of Barry Gray, who did music for Fireball XL5, the Thunderbirds, and Captain Scarlet, and Space 1999, and a film called Doppelganger, which some people may know as Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. And Jason will be on the show tonight as well.
Oh, so. Jason Drury.
Yes.
Oh, we love Jason Drury.
Exactly.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you, Rob, for hanging out tonight. And now you're on your way to your other... Let's get ready for your other show.
Yes, get ready for the other gig.
Another busy Friday.
No, I came into this thinking, God, I have no Transformers. And then I went into a box of stuff and I just pulled a bunch of stuff out. Mirage he actually special came back from work because I like the character so much that I kept him at work. Now he's staying at home now, but now that he's home.
Nice.
But yeah, he'd been my Transformer at work for the longest time.
Awesome.
And I also took to a theater showing of the Transformers the movie a couple of years ago when we could still go to the theater and not have a problem. I went to see Transformers the movie and I took Cyclonus and my Rodimus Prime, which I have. He's up there. I bought him because I didn't get Optimus, and I don't know. I'm
a huge Rodimus fan.
I think the toy lacks the the modular feel that Optimus Prime had, but it's still a fairly interesting toy, and I will give Rodimus Prime his due.
Excellent.
Not a bad toy.
All right, guys. I got things to do.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me. We'll see what happens next week. We have a couple ideas that we're juggling between two, so we'll see what happens, but we will be back next week no matter what. Thanks again, guys. It's been a fun night.
Yep.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah.
See ya.
show. This train goes everywhere you want to go. The brain train. The brain train.
Give me a one-way ticket to anywhere. And a glazed donut.
To go, to go.